Chapter 498. After leaving the Msasi martial arts gym, Lu Qing decided to stop looking for similar places since he had already decided to start his classes the next day. Meals had to be eaten one bite at a time, and the martial arts schools had to be experienced one by one. He would be coming here once a month. Wouldn't it be boring if he wolfed down everything in one go in the future? He looked at the time, put his hands in his pockets and returned to Connecticut University. When he passed by a street with more Chinese people, he happened to see a large supermarket. Lu Qing took out his phone, took a picture and sent it to Yan Zhiko with a smirk. "Do you want me to buy some groceries? I think I ate all your stock last night." After he finished typing, he roughly read it and changed "your home" to "our home" with a smile on his face. Then he clicked send. After a few minutes, Yan Zhiko smiled and said, "Why do I feel like you are a house husband? An inhuman expert as a house husband. This character setting is awesome, I'm giving him a thumbs up." Following that, she added, rolling her eyes, "But I remember that we haven't gone grocery shopping together. Wait for me, I don't have class in the afternoon." "Okay." Lu Qing replied with a silly smile. He switched to the map interface and reconfirmed the route. Then he put away his phone and walked forward leisurely. After walking for a few minutes, the wind that passed through the streets suddenly became stronger. The sky suddenly darkened, and the temperature dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye. Walala, as the wind reached its peak, the rain began to fall. Drip, 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 drip. The weather in Connecticut sure is changeable. Lu Qing, who didn't bring any rain gear, looked around for shelter. At this moment he had an absolute reaction and noticed the raindrops falling. He flexed his muscles and moved his shoulders slightly. He immediately flung away the raindrops without staining his clothes. That's interesting." Lu Qing's eyes lit up as though he had found something fun. He quickly focused his mind and began visualizing. He formed an ice mirror in his heart and displayed the minute changes in various parts of his body. Compared to the past, his control after reaching the inhuman stage was so strong that it could be said to be abnormal. He felt as if his brain was like a supercomputer, instantly extracting the information collected from every part of his body and rapidly giving feedback, giving orders to each of them. His tendons bulged slightly and his veins pulled. Lu Qing kept flexing his muscles, shaking off the raindrops that fell on his body. From his shoulders to his arms, from his chest to his lower abdomen, from his thighs to his ankles. In the beginning he was a little flustered. He cared about his brother but lost his sister-in-law. He could care about his upper body, but he couldn't care about his lower body. He could care about his left but he couldn't care about his right. As the rain fell, a few wet spots quickly appeared on the surface of his body, especially his head. Unless one was a physical invulnerability expert, one wouldn't dare to cultivate too deeply. Just by pulling on the skin and small muscles, one would definitely be slower by half a beat. Step by step, Lu Qing walked leisurely in the rain. He slowly grasped the rhythm and was no longer in a hurry. Everything was in order. It was as if he was immersed in a symphony, letting every part of his body play the role of different instruments, playing a beautiful melody in an orderly manner, intoxicating his soul. In the RV in the next block, Smith looked at the surveillance screen and shrugged. He said to his subordinate who was drinking coffee next to him in confusion, "Is he a poet? Why is he so happy to be in the rain? I don't understand. What a strange Easterner." The black-haired, brown-eyed member of the Homeland Security Bureau shook his head. The rain in Connecticut came and went in a hurry. When Lu Qing strolled to the outdoor cafe, the dark clouds had already dispersed and the sun shone into the wind. He exhaled and wiped the dense cold sweat on his forehead. He felt both tired and refreshed. That experience just now was great. It was as though he had become a god who controlled his body. He had the confidence to reveal everything within. Is this how it feels to have a breakthrough in Ice Mirror? Encountering gods in the void, self-reflection? Ice Mirror was said to be the most difficult martial arts below physical invulnerability. It was the core control of many of the ice sect's martial arts. Not only was it difficult to master but it was also difficult to improve. After Lu Qing completed his transformation and entered the inhuman stage, he thought it would become stronger. Who knew that it wouldn't improve at all? But today he had a breakthrough for no reason because of the rain. After arriving in America and meeting Ku, my body and mind are satisfied. My latent impatience is gone, my mind is stable, and I already have the foundation. Is that why I was able to gain something by chance? Lu Qing thought, surprised, delighted, and amused. Damn it. Why does it feel like I'm practicing dual cultivation? He couldn't help but complain. He examined himself again. The rain just now was rather heavy, and he had just made a breakthrough in his control of Ice Mirror. It was inevitable that he would have trouble controlling his body. There were many wet marks on his body, especially on his hair, which was sticking to his body. However, after walking in the rain for more than 10 minutes, most of his body was dry. It was still unbelievable. Shaking his clothes, Lu Qing raised his right hand and wiped his hair, wiping off patches of frost and ice crystals. He switched to his other hand and wiped his hair again. A little mist spread out and his hair was completely dry. Not bad. Lu Qing showed the satisfaction of a full meal. He walked to the bar counter of the cafe and ordered a cup of cappuccino on a whim. He found a table and sat down. Sipping his coffee, he looked at his phone and searched for information on the Jaruga sect in English, leisurely waiting for Yenjika to end her morning class. He had already taken a copy of the relevant information in Chinese from the Ice God sect, but it was still lacking. On the other side in the RV, "Boss, look." The surveillance staff looked up in surprise and shouted to Smith. "What?" Smith put down his cutlery and looked over. His subordinate pointed at the screen and said, "Boss, he walked in the rain for 13.5 minutes, but only a small part of his clothes and pants were wet." Smith approached and carefully examined the playback. When he saw that Lu Qing had mistakenly dried his hair with the power of frost and flame, he suddenly understood and explained to himself, this should be some kind of application of his superpower. It's very detailed and wonderful. Write it in the report and add it to the data. Yes, boss. The staff cleared his doubts. At noon, Lu Qing met up with Yenjika and Auntie Du. They found a famous old Chinese restaurant and filled their stomachs. After that, the couple left Auntie Du to pass the time and went to the supermarket hand in hand. They went straight to the food section and saw a dazzling array of vegetables, fruits and all kinds of meat. "What do you want to eat?" "It's my treat." Yenjika showed her dimples and smiled sweetly. Lu Qing was stunned for a moment and said in annoyance, "I forgot to look at the menu. I don't even know what to ask Auntie Du to cook tonight. Just buy whatever you want." Cough, "I didn't think about this at all last night. Forgot to look at the menu?" Yenjika gritted her teeth and glared at him. Under the light, her cheeks became redder and redder. She snorted, "What else do you remember?" "Haha, I'll look into it later. When I'm confident, I'll give Auntie Du a day off and we'll cook on our own." Lu Qing laughed embarrassedly, avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial. The episode passed quickly. Yenjika pulled Lu Qing and Lu Qing pushed the shopping cart and walked to the front of the meat section. The girl looked at it with interest. She picked up the food and put it in the car with interest. She muttered, "I'm not sure. The steak looks good. This cowboy rib is good too." Lu Qing listened in a daze and then asked with admiration, "You're right. Have you bought here before with Empress Dowager and Auntie Du? Otherwise, how could she choose so quickly and confidently?" Yenjika looked up at him and answered matter-of-factly, "No, it's my first time today." "Then what are your standards?" Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. Yenjika glanced at him with a look that said, "Are you stupid?" and said confidently, "Based on the price. Usually the expensive ones are the best ones." "That makes sense." Lu Qing was speechless. After getting the affirmation, Yenjika raised her head and put the meat she wanted into the cart. She added, "Look at them. They look better than the ones next to them. The texture is so beautiful." "I can't tell." Lu Qing didn't dare to refute. He followed the confident Ku around the food section and watched her pick up the food excitedly. Finally, they went back to the vegetable section to replenish their vitamins and plant fiber. "Qing, what is this?" Yenjika pointed at a piece of green and asked curiously. Lu Qing stared at him and answered confidently, "I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know either. I don't even know the words." Yenjika nodded in agreement. After that, they looked at each other and laughed inexplicably. After checking the words and knowing the scientific name, Yenjika still didn't know what it was called. "Let's buy some and try it." With Lu Qing by her side, she was eager to try new things. Just like that, they bought 2 full carts and each pushed one to the checkout section. As they looked at each other, they suddenly had the subtle feeling of starting a family and living together. Their lips curled up. The couple lined up to pay. Although they bought a lot of food, it was not eye-catching because there were many people who bought a week's worth of food in one go here. Being good at using the freezer was a major feature of life in America. After paying the bill, Lu Qing easily picked up several large bags and followed Yenjika out of the restaurant. After passing by the 2 white students, they went out and waited for Aunt Du to drive over. One of the 2 white students turned around and looked at Lu Qing's back with a puzzled expression. "What happened?" The tall, strong, freckled, brown-haired student asked his companion in confusion. Nothing. The blonde youth with thick arms and devil tattoos shook his head. He just felt that the Asian youth with the bags of food looked a little familiar. The freckled brown-haired student didn't dwell on the question and said, "George, we can't become martial arts apprentices. Why don't we try out Chinese martial arts? You saw the King of Youth League. Peng and Lu are very good." "Let me think about it." The blonde youth frowned in distress. Back at home, Yan Zhika started her homework, Lu Qing started his daily exercise, and Du Yan prepared dinner. By the time they finished eating, the sky was already dark. Yan Zhika went back to her room and turned on the lights, illuminating the room with a faint yellow glow. "Just a little more and I'm done. This professor gives the most homework." The girl stretched and complained to Lu Qing. Then she buried herself in her homework. At this moment, she noticed Lu Qing bringing a chair over and sitting beside her. He turned on the table lamp to make the light brighter. Then he sat down silently with a book in his hand. He studied it seriously and accompanied her in silence. "Qing, what are you reading?" After a few minutes, Yan Zhika couldn't hide her curiosity and turned her head to ask. Lu Qing waved the book and smiled. "Recipes." Yan Zhika snorted and pursed her lips. She turned her head and looked to the side. The dimples on her cheeks deepened. She felt that the light in the room was very warm. Chapter 499. Before 8 o'clock, Yan Zhika finished the rest of her homework. Stretching her arms, she turned to Lu Qing and asked with a smile, "Hello, mister, do you want to eat cake?" Looking at the girl's sparkling eyes and eager face, Lu Qing chuckled and answered firmly, "Yes." "Good. I'll make it for you and show you how good I am." Yan Zhika nodded with satisfaction. She stood up and pinned up her hair with a hairpin. Well, a minute's silence for the materials wasted last night. She went down the stairs to the kitchen and took out a few eggs. She beat them and separated them into a bowl of egg yolks and egg whites. "Do you need help?" Lu Qing followed behind her and volunteered. Yan Zhika rolled her eyes and handed the glass bowl with egg white to Lu Qing. "Then help me beat it. Since Qing is so sincere, I won't use the egg beater." "Okay." Lu Qing took out a pair of chopsticks and prepared to beat them at a high speed. But at this time he was puzzled and hurriedly asked, "What is considered to be evenly distributed? To what extent?" "I've never made a cake before. When I beat eggs for my mom, it was to make omelets. The requirements should be different, right?" Yan Zhika pondered for a moment, blinked her eyes and turned around in small steps. She opened a drawer in the kitchen and took out a book. After flipping through a few pages, she said, "Beat until thick foam appears." That's it. Why does it feel so unreliable?" Seeing this, Lu Qing's mouth twitched. Noticing his gaze, Yan Zhika quickly raised her chin and emphasized seriously, "You're right. I actually remember it. I flipped the book to make sure it's perfect." "Got it." Lu Qing responded with a smile. His wrist joints moved at a high speed and the chopsticks made a clicking sound. Yan Zhika was in a daze. After a while she sighed, "Qing, you're really a human egg beater. This hand speed, this power control, tsk. Then she looked up and thought carefully for a few seconds. She asked Lu Qing to slow down a little. She took out an apron and started to process the egg yolks. When the foam appeared on Lu Qing's side, she quickly weighed the sugar and put it in. Then she told him to speed up the mixing. During the whole process, Yan Zhika came and went, brushing against Lu Qing's body and rubbing his hair. They looked at each other, full of warmth and joy. Finally, they finished everything. They put the materials into the mold, stuffed it into the oven and set the time. While waiting, they leaned against each other and chatted about various topics. Occasionally they would play affectionately. 30 seconds. Yan Zhika stared at the number on the screen with sparkling eyes. "Ah, it must be delicious." Lu Qing encouraged with anticipation. After they exchanged a few words, sounds could be heard. The cake was about to be baked. Okay. Yan Zhika turned around spotty. But when she turned around, she saw that Lu Qing had already pulled open the oven door and took out the cake mold with his bare hands, just like how he usually took out bowls and chopsticks for a meal. What? Lu Qing put the cake on the plate. A sweet aroma filled the air. Yan Zhika answered with a serious expression, "It's dangerous. Please don't imitate it." "Haha, I'm wearing gloves." Lu Qing put down the mold and raised his right hand. The surface was covered with white steam. Yan Zhika was speechless. She looked at the cake on the table, inhaled the aroma, and nodded seriously. "Qing, I'm so jealous of you." "What are you jealous of?" Lu Qing asked in surprise. "I'm jealous that you have such a good wife like me." Yenjika raised her arm and tried not to laugh. Ha! Lu Qing laughed out loud for a while. Yenjika is also a little amused by me. Yenjika passed the spoon to Lu Qing and said timidly, I want to try but I don't dare. Qing, try it and tell me how it tastes. Okay. Lu Qing took a spoonful and chewed for a while. He was intoxicated and praised, not bad. The sweetness is just right. As he spoke, he extended his arm and put the spoon in front of his little fairy's mouth. Really? Yenjika's eyes were filled with joy. She leaned forward and took a small bite of the cake and tasted it carefully. After 10 seconds, she heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, Good, I didn't lose my standard. But the taste isn't as exaggerated as Qing. Well, I'm in a good mood today. I won't expose his exaggerated acting. Yenjika hurriedly urged him, hurry up and eat. Qing, let me tell you, the desserts in America are super sweet. It's like candy is free. I don't particularly like the sweet kind. While chatting and laughing, the couple finished the cake. Of course, Lu Qing took care of 4/5 of the cake. In the end, he felt a little embarrassed to have increased Aunt Du's workload, so he volunteered to clean up the mess and clean the table. Yenjika watched as Lu Qing put on an apron and stood in front of the sink. He carefully washed the dishes and wiped them with a special cloth. She leaned against the kitchen door and her eyes gradually lit up. After a while, her dimples appeared. She leaned over and said confidently, Qing, I'm here to help you. Following which, sounds of laughter rang out in the kitchen. Lu Qing's helpless voice could be heard from time to time. You don't have to help. Why are you causing trouble? In the cheerful atmosphere, the two finished cleaning up and returned to the second floor. They each took a shower and lay on the same bed. Yenjika seemed to have forgotten that the room she had arranged for Lu Qing was next door. She asked with great interest, Qing, you said that your ice mirror has reached the realm of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection. What's the use of that? My sensing range has increased by at least 50%. My control of my body is so accurate that there's almost no error. If I suffer from internal injuries, the recovery time will be greatly reduced. Also, I can correspondingly stimulate my qi and blood, simplify the fighting formula, and combine it with the path of Azura that I previously comprehended. The explosive power will increase and the number of times I can use it will increase. Lu Qing explained tirelessly, half describing for his wife, and half summarizing himself. As for the control of strength and moves, those are just minor details. Alright, Ku, from tomorrow onwards I'll teach you the fighting formula. We'll go to bed on time tonight to replenish our energy. Okay, Yenjika replied happily. Her eyes sparkled as she listened to Lu Qing's explanation. After a pause, she recalled something and quickly asked, Is there still no news on the wholeness formula? No. It's the secret technique of the extreme Hadu sect. I don't think it's that easy to get hold of it. Even the military has to consider many things, Lu Qing said with a sigh. Just then, a thought came to him and he suddenly broke into laughter. I realized there's another use for the ice mirror breakthrough. Haha, I won't talk about it. Not suitable for children. Yenjika was instantly filled with curiosity. She asked repeatedly, using both her hands and legs, sometimes threatening and sometimes acting coquettishly. After a round of banter, Lu Qing raised his hands in surrender and confessed honestly. He said in an extremely academic tone, Didn't you complain that I'm too old to come out last night? Using that was a little insensitive. But now that the ice mirror has improved to the self-reflection realm, I can control it to a certain extent. Anyway, with self-adjustment of sensitivity and listening skill, the effect should be pretty good. At first, Yenjika felt shy listening to him, but in the end it turned into a standard dumbfounded look. Qing, how did you end up in this aspect when practicing martial arts? Applying what I've learned. Lu Qing was just about to give a humorous reply when he was immediately pummeled by delicate punches. At the end of their banter, Yenjika sensed that the atmosphere was a little off. She quickly turned her back to Lu Qing, buried her face in the pillow, and announced in a muffled voice, I fell asleep. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Thinking of how his girl hadn't slept the entire night and how she didn't even need to sleep with the help of the swordsman formula, he felt a pang of pity for her. Suppressing the urge, he hugged her from behind and kissed her lightly on the cheek. Good night. Good night. Yenjika's dimples slowly blossomed. The next morning the two woke up feeling refreshed. Lu Qing found a pen and paper and wrote the fighting formula. After finishing his training and breakfast, he continued on to the campus of Connecticut University. After waving goodbye to Yenjika, he took a detour to the Musashi martial arts gym. When he passed by a block, he suddenly heard gunshots. He saw two armed robbers wearing balaclavas running out of the bank in front of him. They seemed to be a white man and a black man. Hey, is there a chance to crack down on crime? Lu Cheng's spirits were lifted. He was eager and excited. Just as he was about to make a move, a figure flashed past and knocked over one of the robbers with a bang. The figure was dressed like Superman. Just as he was about to dodge and attack the remaining robber, a net made of silk threads fell from the sky and enveloped his target. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Another two figures rushed over. Lu Cheng was a little dumbfounded. There are too many superheroes in America, aren't there? It's just a case of robbing a bank and there are three of them. In the next block, Smith, who was watching the surveillance footage, laughed out loud. These two bastards sure are unlucky. Three superheroes happened to be having breakfast nearby. At this point, he silently added another sentence. And a dangerous grade monster passed by. The incident in the morning passed in a flash. Lu Cheng shook his head and left the scene. He had some thoughts in his mind. Since the Americans are so passionate about acting as superheroes, will there be people acting as them? No, let's not talk about acting. Will there be people imitating high-end, perverted criminals? This seems to be their tradition. I have to go back and collect information to see if there are similar criminals in Connecticut. Could it be possible for them to endanger Yenjika? I have to take precautions. Sigh, it's a pity that I'm not familiar with this place. No intelligence, no resources, no evidence, no clues. If I'm not careful, I'll cross the line and be deported. Otherwise, I could really come up with a Connecticut criminal cleanup plan. I'll visit them one by one and blow them up at one point. Lu Cheng's thoughts ran wild as he arrived at the entrance of the Musashi Martial Arts Gym. P.S. Connecticut criminals, who the F***ck did we offend? Chapter 500. Musashi Martial Arts Arena. As the students participating in the advanced course had decent combat skills, they could easily catch up without any preparation. Therefore, Lu Cheng was assigned to one of the groups by Brook without much trouble and was assigned to an exclusive training ground. There was a total of 9 people in the group. There were a total of 9 people in this group, including him. Most of them were young men with strong physiques and natural advantages. Only 3 of them did not belong to this group. One of them was the red-eyed girl, Hathaway, who was more than 1.8 meters tall. From the way the other students were fearful of her, it could be seen that she was not weak and could be considered as a big sister figure. The other one was the middle-aged man with gray hair and sagging cheeks, Cole. Under normal circumstances, at his age, he should have chosen the fitness class. However, he trained crazily more than anyone else. His eyes were filled with ferocity, and every punch and kick seemed to be filled with all his strength. As for the third one, it was of course Lu Cheng himself. His muscles were moderate and his strength was hidden. Therefore he could not fully support his combat suit. Compared to the other students, he was shorter and skinnier. However, the other students did not discriminate or provoke him. Since he could join the advanced course, he must have a good foundation. Their speculations were quickly confirmed by Coach Lin Delo's introduction. This was an Asian kid who had practiced Chinese martial arts. After observing for a while, Lu Cheng gained an intuitive understanding of the fighting techniques of the Jaruga sect. They used boxing as their core, mixed with jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and were very good at using the body and restricting the joints. However, this was all part of the basic content, and was not shown at all when it came to the integration of the body's spirituality and the ability to communicate with all living things. With Lu Cheng's current insight, knowledge, and foundation, he joined the training after 20 minutes and got the hang of it quickly. It was as though he had been immersed in it for at least 5 years. Hathaway and the other students were amazed and speechless. Only the middle-aged man Cole was not interested in anything else. He treated the void in front of him as his mortal enemy and kept on punching and kicking, making cracking sounds. Not bad. He is already at the level of a professional 9th pin. Why hasn't he become a combat apprentice? Lu Cheng glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. After more than an hour, Coach Lin Delo announced that the combat training had come to an end. Everyone entered the room at the side and began to awaken their spirituality. This was also the reason why the advanced course was worth $5,000 and why there were so many applicants. After entering the room, Hathaway picked up the corresponding towel and wiped the sweat off her forehead. She glanced at the shy and introverted Asian boy Lu Cheng. He was calm and composed with barely any sweat on his forehead. It seemed like he was just warming up. How magical. She looked at the other students and started whispering to them, attributing everything to the mysterious Chinese martial arts. Actually, I was really just warming up. Lu Cheng could vaguely sense what they were thinking and said to himself in amusement. At this time, Coach Lin Dello closed the door, stood in the center, and said to the 9 students sitting around him. He looked at the 9 students in front of him and said to them, "The strength of the body is the key to strengthening the own spirit. However, it is also the cage that restricts us from awakening the own spirit. Therefore, we need to strengthen our body through hard training and let it fall into a state of fatigue to reduce the interference. Your current state is very suitable for the awakening training." He had said similar words many times in the past. However, as there was a new student joining them today, he had to say it again. Her body was tired but her spirit was still excited. Hathaway followed the breathing rhythm that Lin Dello taught her and slowly adjusted her breathing. She gradually felt a strange sense of calmness in her heart. At that moment, Lin Dello pressed the remote control and let the surrounding sound system play a sacred and melodious melody. He was guiding the students to become more relaxed. When she was extremely relaxed, Hathaway felt like her spirit was floating. She seemed to have seen the spirituality that belonged to her. However, she was still unable to awaken it and communicate with it. Isn't this meditating? However, there is a subtle difference. It seems to have some application of self-hypnosis mixed in. Lu Cheng experienced the attempt to awaken the own spirit with great interest. His consciousness was above and looked down at his body. He grasped every change in it without missing anything. He was like a god that ruled over this body. Yes, this is not called own spirit. It should be called own spirit. Encountering God in the void, God is oneself. Half an hour later, Linda Luo stopped playing the ethereal music and said to the few disappointed students, "Let's go. Don't try anymore. Otherwise you will lose yourself." After saying that, he took out a dark red box that seemed to be used to store jewelry. Yes, it was really a box used to store jewelry. After opening it, there was a blue gem lying inside. "This is a sapphire that my teacher, Mr. Joseph, the Grandmaster of Martial Arts, made. He used the own spirit as the main source of the polishing and gave it a certain level of spirituality. Try to communicate with it and tell me what you feel. This is the practice of communicating with the spirituality of all things. It can help you awaken the own spirit," said Lin Dello seriously. He was a black-haired Caucasian man who was less than 30 years old. He was obviously of Latin descent. The lines on his face looked like they were carved by knives and axes. According to the order, the middle-aged man Cole was the first to receive the gem. He communicated with it quietly for a while before opening his eyes and revealing his grayish-white pupils. "I feel a patch of blue." Lin Dello nodded slightly and didn't comment. He let Cole pass the message clockwise. "I feel like I'm touching water. I almost couldn't breathe just now. Waves, waves, I see waves." After a few people, the object of spirituality was in the hands of the extremely curious Lu Cheng. He imitated the other students and placed the gem in his palm. He placed it horizontally on his left chest and closed his eyes. Focusing his thoughts, he reflected in the ice mirror. His mind slowly descended and came into contact with the gem. It seemed to surround and envelop it. Ripples appeared in his heart lake. Within the ice mirror, a crashing sound could be heard. It was a surging sea that filled the surroundings. It was deep blue, layered and dimly glowing. Essence, charm. These 2 words popped up in Lu Cheng's mind. He felt that this sapphire was very similar to the paper on which he had written the fighting formula. However, there were subtle differences. There are 3,000 paths, but they all lead to the same destination. He suddenly remembered a saying in a cultivation classic. His mind and consciousness immersed in the gem, wanting to explore more. With a crashing sound, the waves of the blue sea surged and churned to the bottom. There was a layer of blood like water. Thick, sticky, stinky, cruel, evil and many other sensations appeared in Lu Cheng's ice mirror, creating exaggerated ripples and hideous cracks. Lu Cheng responded in his mind. He visualized the ice spirit holy light and moved a little forward. The blood flow immediately retreated and the ice mirror regained its stability. The blue sea once again covered everything except for the coldness. It seemed to have 2 poles. What's going on? When the Grandmaster of Martial Arts Joseph was polishing the gem, he couldn't control his emotions and allowed the negative things to taint his spirituality. Moreover, this evil feeling was buried very deep. It would be difficult to detect or trigger the changes if one wasn't of a similar level. Experts of a similar level wouldn't have the time to study the spiritual item that Joseph was polishing for his disciple. Lu Cheng was still in a state where he didn't know much about the awakening and polishing of the Jaruga sect. It was hard for him to figure out the real reason. He opened his eyes and briefly explained his feelings. "See, Lin Deluo's eyes were filled with surprise. After a while he nodded and said, "That's right. This Asian kid's spirituality is very strong." Seeing that no one noticed anything unusual, Lu Qing secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He passed the sapphire to Athaway, who was beside him. Athaway got into position and communicated with him silently for a while. She opened her eyes happily and replied, "Coach, I see an iceberg." While Lu Qing was speechless, Lin Deluo shook his head with a sour expression. "Athaway, you've regressed." Athaway's smile instantly collapsed. The two following students, one saying cold, and the other saying deep water, witnessed the remnants of Lu Qing's influence gradually fading away without them realizing it. After the practice of own spirit came to an end, Lu Qing and the rest started their combat training again. This allowed him to re-understand the foundation of his martial arts from different perspectives and concepts. From there, he could find problems that he couldn't detect in the past. Stones from other mountains can be used to attack jade. At 11:30 p.m., Lin Deluo announced the end of the class for the day. If anyone wanted to come in the afternoon, they could do an hour of free practice. Lu Qing didn't have the time to care about the other students. He took a shower, changed his clothes, and returned to Connecticut University to have lunch with Yen Zhika. With his company, Du Yin had the time to do something of her own. After noon, Du Yin returned and the girl re-entered the classroom. Lu Qing found the nearest cafe and asked for an iced latte. As he drank, he used the local internet to search for famous criminals in Connecticut. The first thing that came into his view was a scary guy known as the God Slayer. He committed crimes all over America, not just in Connecticut. He took pleasure in killing famous superheroes. Other than that, there was no pattern to his crimes. Until now, he hadn't been caught. This guy probably has the strength of a physical invulnerability expert, Lu Qing exclaimed. However, the God Slayer targeted powerful superheroes. It was almost impossible for him to affect Cuckoo, so he didn't need to be wary of him. Lu Qing swiped his thumb and looked at the search results again. Every year the nightmare would randomly kill people. His targets have no pattern. The only thing that can be confirmed is that when the corpse is found, the forehead will be slit vertically and there seems to be an additional bloody eye. According to the police report, there was once a person who tried to commit a crime to escape the law. In the end, he provoked the nightmare and became the next victim. From the limited 2 encounters, this guy is considered a veteran grandmaster of martial arts in America. He's similar to our Inhuman. No leads, no leads. Lu Qing sipped his coffee in frustration. His plan to clean up criminals had been foiled before it even started. He didn't even know who the culprit was. Out of habit, he continued to scroll down. He saw that there were cases of 2 to 4 female high school students and below disappearing every year. After years of police investigation, they could basically confirm that the culprit was the same person, codenamed Butcher. On the list of suspects listed online, Lu Qing saw a familiar name. Joseph? Joseph from the Musashi martial arts gym? In an ordinary car on the street, Smith looked at the surveillance camera and asked his subordinates, "Can you find out what he's seen?" "Yes, but you need to use the Skynet, boss," answered the guy wearing a baseball cap casually. Chapter 501. Joseph. Seeing this name, Lu Qing immediately recalled his experience of communicating with the gemstone spiritual object in the morning. He remembered the sticky, smelly, evil and cruel blood. That was a gemstone polished by martial artist Johnny Joseph with his own spirit. The tainted deep spirituality seemed to have originated from the negative factors at the bottom of his heart or his prolonged emotional loss. Thinking of this, Lu Qing perked up. He began to research why Joseph was listed as a suspect. The blood of a missing girl, Taylor, was found in the woods near his villa. His ex-wife spread the word that he believed in the devil and that he had cult books like The Pure Girl's Spirit at home. Another victim, Sonny's boyfriend, accused him of seeing figures similar to Joseph around the scene of the possible disappearance. However, the broken camera couldn't provide any evidence. Reading line by line, Lu Qing realized that these clues couldn't clearly prove that Joseph was the culprit. They couldn't even make him undergo a strict investigation. However, combined with the abnormality of the sapphire, he was somewhat confident. In an ordinary sedan on the street, a young man in a baseball cap was typing rapidly on the keyboard. "Boss, he's looking at famous criminals and cases in Connecticut." Smith was stunned. He took the laptop from his subordinate and slid his index finger across the touchscreen, reading the content that Lu Qing had read. This was feedback from the internet service provider. What is he planning to do? Does he want to play the role of a superhero? Asked the young man in the baseball cap, seeking to communicate. After a moment of silence, Smith slowly opened his mouth. This is probably the hobby of Chinese martial artists. In Chinese it's called qie, or learn from each other. He uttered the words he had learned during his research over the past few days in a strange accent. He then added, "Don't our mixed martial arts masters like challenges as well? I think I get it. He's looking for a challenge that won't get him kicked out of the game." The young man in the baseball cap was enlightened. "Boss, you have to think of a way to warn him. Don't make this a big deal." Smith nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. He returned the laptop to his subordinate and pointed outside. "I'll go get a cup of hot coffee. Do you want one?" "No need. Can I have some Coke?" The young man in the baseball cap smiled brightly. After getting out of the car, Smith went to another shop and bought a cup of steaming black coffee. Then he took the elevator to the top floor and entered the rooftop. Leaning against the edge, he silently looked down at the building opposite. The short building was called Musashi Martial Arts Arena. A few minutes later, the door of the rooftop was opened. The gray-haired middle-aged man, Cole, appeared with a bag of things in his hand. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were cold. "Smith." Cole was stunned for a second before he let out a sigh. "You're here again." Smith picked up the cup, downed the remaining coffee that had cooled down and smiled bitterly. "Uncle Cole, how have you been? I still haven't awakened my own spirit, and I still haven't become Joseph's combat apprentice." Cole took out a can of beer, opened it with a bang and took a deep gulp. The pale yellow beads of water flowed down his chin, which he had forgotten to shave, past his grayish-white and messy beard stubble, and fell to the ground, breaking into 8 pieces. Smith opened his mouth as though he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say a word. He crushed the cup into a ball, turned around and left the rooftop. He found a supermarket and bought a can of Coke for his subordinate. He instructed him to go home and rest, to ensure that he had enough energy to wait for his next shift. As for the other members of the team, they were sent off to do other things. After studying for a long time, Lu Qing suddenly broke into laughter. He was mocking himself for being too engrossed in his role. Even if he was fairly certain that martial artist Johnny Joseph was the criminal butcher, who had been active for more than a decade, he could still pay him a visit with peace of mind. However, if he couldn't find any concrete evidence, it would be very troublesome to clean up the mess. This was a veteran mighty one with a relatively high status. In this way, if he was not careful, he would become a criminal. In a place where he was unfamiliar with the people and there were not many resources to borrow, not to mention the serious consequences, the lightest punishment would be deportation, and his visa would be denied. This would contradict his most important request. Should he seek help from the military? They definitely have an intelligence network in America, but how should he ask? As the thought flashed through his mind, Lu Qing had already simulated the most likely conversation. "I'm going to deal with Johnny Joseph. I need intelligence support." "Why?" "He's a perverted criminal. He might endanger my wife." "Oh? Does he know your wife?" "No." "Does his target group include your wife?" "No." "Then why do you want to deal with him?" "Do you understand? There's a certain possibility. A small possibility. I want to take precautions. Please forgive me for not understanding your train of thought." Lu Qing shook his head and mocked himself when he thought of a similar scenario. He temporarily put aside the idea of visiting the butcher. Joseph's target should only be young girls. He wouldn't be able to find college students, not to mention Ku, who was just one of the many female college students. Even though perverted criminals like him are detestable and everyone has the right to kill them, and I also have a sense of justice, I still have to consider the actual situation. Lu Qing picked up his iced latte and drank the last mouthful. Seeing that it was still early, he decided to head to the Musashi Martial Arts Gym for another hour of free practice. I can't relax my expectations of myself just because I'm already an inhuman and my strength is internalized. Even if I don't train, my realm won't regress. My target has never been an inhuman. The past doesn't count. Picking up his phone, Lu Qing walked out of the cafe. Just as he was about to identify the road, a car suddenly appeared in front of him and slowly stopped by the roadside. "Hello, Lu," greeted the driver with a smile. "Who's that?" Lu Qing looked over in confusion. He felt that the young and sunny face was a little familiar. But, in his eyes, most foreigners looked the same. "You asked me for directions yesterday," Smith reminded him. "Oh, it's you." Lu Qing suddenly remembered. Then a thought came to him and he blurted out, "How do you know my surname is Lu?" At that moment, his hair stood on end. He was like a monster that was about to pounce. His natural aura made Smith shiver. He almost lost control of his body and abandoned the car to escape. Taking a deep breath, Smith maintained his smile. He took out his identification and introduced himself. "I'm Smith from the Department of Homeland Security. I'm in charge of monitoring your activities in Connecticut." His actions didn't violate the regulations. Such monitoring could be communicated with the target. Reminders and warnings were given first to let Chinese martial artists know that they were under the strict supervision of the state apparatus. This could effectively reduce the occurrence of violent incidents and nip the problem in the bud. However, follow-up monitoring wouldn't be reduced because of this. They would detect and prevent unforeseen events at the first instance. This was actually the most common method used by many experienced agents when they received similar missions. However, Smith was a greenhorn and had a bit of aggressiveness. Hence, he chose to monitor in secret. Lu Qing was stunned for a second. From the corner of his eye, he saw his image playing on the screen of the computer in the passenger seat. He was convinced. "Can I verify your identification number?" Just as he finished speaking, he saw the corner of Smith's mouth twitch. It was as if he heard the other party shouting about the trust between people. "Sure," Smith maintained his expression and answered in a deep voice. Lu Qing searched for a way to verify. After confirming, he nodded and asked, "Mr. Smith, why are you looking for me?" He had long heard and could reasonably deduce that martial artists of his level would be monitored when they entered the United States. That was why he was so cautious about his words and actions. He didn't randomly challenge others to learn from. Now that he had met the head of the Secret Service in charge of monitoring him, he finally felt relieved. "Lou, let's talk in the car." Smith picked up the computer and pointed at the passenger seat. Lu Qing was bold and had a clear conscience. He immediately pulled open the car door, sat in, and fastened his seatbelt. Smith was dumbfounded by this small action. It was like a magical fantasy. Why would a monster like this need a seatbelt? He calmed himself down, started the car, and drove to another street. After a moment of thought, he said, "Lou, you're investigating famous criminals in Connecticut. You want to spar with them? So that's why he's here to warn me?" Lu Qing seemed to come to a realization. He chuckled. "It's just a casual investigation. I've always been law-abiding." As though he didn't hear his explanation, Smith continued. "Actually, we still have some evidence on Joseph, more than what has been revealed. However, we can't form a complete chain of evidence. He's also a veteran martial artist with status and connections. He's on good terms with many senators and lawyers. We can't apply for a search warrant. Sunny is a very intelligent girl. According to the Jaruga sect, her father once heard the remnants of her cries and screams around Joseph's villa. He believed that there must be a criminal case and evidence buried there. As long as we could enter and search, we would definitely be able to find clues and arrest Joseph. But no one listens to us. It's been 5 years since a superhero tried to infiltrate Joseph's villa, but he was discovered and sent to prison. In recent years, whenever Joseph goes out, he'll get his students to guard the villa. He's also installed a high-tech surveillance and alarm system. Superheroes and detectives rarely interfere." Lu Qing fell into deep thought. He nodded slowly. "You want me to visit Joseph, challenge him, defeat him, and give you a chance to search for evidence?" "You can say that," Smith replied in a deep voice. "But what if you fall out with him? What if you don't admit to it? And what does this have to do with Homeland Security?" Lu Qing wouldn't trust the stranger's words so easily. Everything would be fine if they could find evidence. But what if they couldn't? The other party could simply be using him and wouldn't help to eliminate any future problems. Smith tilted his head and looked at Lu Qing. His deep-set eyes were filled with sorrow and pain. "I'll take care of the alarm system here. If we can't find any evidence, as long as you disguise yourself well and don't let Joseph get hurt too badly, this will just be an ordinary attack case involving a superhero that we can't find any suspects. I can cover it up." At this point, he took a deep breath and said, "When you were searching for information, you should have seen the photo of the victim, Sunny, and her boyfriend. You should have seen him being interviewed." Lu Cheng's memories lit up. The photo of the blonde girl's boyfriend flashed across his mind. Gradually, they overlapped with the head of the Secret Service before him. Judging from the time, Smith must have joined the national apparatus because of this matter. Lu Cheng's wariness was mostly gone. He began to believe Smith's words. Retracting his gaze, Smith looked ahead. "I know this is a difficult choice for you. Joseph is also a dangerous monster. You might not be able to win against him. Besides, you can only defeat him and not kill him. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw Lu Qing light up his phone from the corner of his eye. He calmly buried his head and focused on watching a video. It was a compilation of Joseph's battles from the past year. Chapter 502. Smith shut his mouth and focused on the road ahead. He let the car turn onto another road in the quiet atmosphere. It took many twists and turns, going back and forth, and circling around Kingstown University again and again. After a long while, Lu Qing exited the video interface and opened the app. He replied to Yenjika's complaint about the professor, unhurried as usual. "What's your answer?" Smith asked expectantly and nervously. His voice was a little hoarse. Lu Qing glanced at him casually and didn't answer. He sent a message to Yenjika first. "Do you want me to be the bane of evil? What's the situation?" Yenjika replied with an emoji of a confused and adorable mythical beast. "An agent from the Department of Homeland Security is looking for me for a favor. Coincidentally, it's in line with my plans. The situation is too complicated, so I'll tell you about it after dinner. It's not dangerous. The worst-case scenario is that you have to find me a good lawyer so that it won't affect my future visa." Lu Qing replied with a smile. "Empress Dowager knows a few good lawyers and has the backing of an agent from the Homeland Security Bureau. You'll be fine as long as you don't cause any big trouble." Yenjika saw how confident Lu Qing was, as if he was going to the next street to buy groceries. She wasn't worried but more curious and puzzled. Qing really can't stop worrying no matter where he goes. "What's your answer?" Seeing that Lu Qing had stopped chatting, Smith repeated his question. His sunlit face was tense, afraid to reveal the turbulent emotions in his heart. "No problem." Lu Qing locked his phone with a click and answered calmly. With the strength that Johnny Joseph had displayed in the past year, Lu Qing was confident that he could beat him in a one-on-one duel before he made a breakthrough in Ice Mirror. What's more, this was a surprise attack and his Ice Mirror had reached the level of encountering gods in the void self-reflection. "No problem." Smith was shocked and surprised at the same time. He could feel the strong confidence that was hidden deep under the surface. Is he really fine? Although Joseph's strength had been fluctuating, it had always been at the dangerous grade. In the past 6 months, it felt like he had returned to his peak and was on the same level as the Chinese monster beside him. He definitely wasn't an enemy that could be easily dealt with confidence. Smith was worried and emphasized this point. Seeing that Lu Qing was unmoved, he didn't mention it again. He had waited for 5 years for such an opportunity. He was not willing to miss it because of his misgivings. He only wanted to grasp it firmly. At 4 in the afternoon, Joseph will leave the Musashi martial arts gym and return to his home in the suburbs. At that time, the students guarding his villa will leave, leaving him alone. I will use my authority to enter the system and cut off the connection between the police station and his alarm system. All the police and security officers patrolling the area will pass by his villa once every 28 to 35 minutes. He has scheduled an afternoon tea at 4:40. This is his habit. It's to replenish his energy from his free training in the afternoon. This is your chance and this is our chance. Smith spoke one by one as he considered all the possibilities. To him, this matter had been on his mind day and night for 5 years. Lu Qing listened quietly. His confidence in this matter had increased by another 10%. When he didn't understand a word, he would take the context into consideration and seek common ground. If it was really an obstacle to communication, he would ask Smith to repeat it, explain it, or provide keywords for translation. As they conversed, Smith drove to another street and brought back a jacket often worn by delivery boys and a few empty lunch boxes. He also gave Lu Qing the baseball cap that his subordinates had left in the car. This was to prevent Johnny Joseph from remembering his face and reporting him in the future. This was exactly what Lu Qing wanted. Johnny Joseph wasn't a loner. He was one of the top 10 mighty ones in the entire Jaruga sect. He had teachers, students, and friends. If he left any traces behind, it would be troublesome. At 4:23, Johnny Joseph drove his Hummer back to the entrance of the villa. He happened to see the black giant Olsen driving a similarly exaggerated car. Beep, beep, beep. He pressed the horn to stop the car. What? Olsen stepped on the brakes and rubbed his bald head, revealing a mouthful of extremely white teeth. Joseph had a layer of light yellow hair. He stared at Olsen with his blue eyes and said in a cold tone, "Watch your mouth. I don't want to hear you make fun of me again." Olsen's skin was so dark that it was shiny, but his eyes were filled with anger. However, when he looked into Joseph's eyes, he saw that there seemed to be a storm and waves brewing in Joseph's deep blue eyes. He couldn't help but shiver. His emotions faded away, and he raised his arm to show that he already knew about the warning. He muttered, "I'm sorry, Joseph. Seriously, you don't have a sense of humor?" He released the brakes, stepped on the accelerator and drove to another villa. Coward, coward. Joseph cursed under his breath, as if he couldn't wait to fight with Olsen on the spot. He was about 40 years old. He was a Caucasian brawny man who was more than 1.9 meters tall. The muscles on his arms and chest were well-defined and exceptionally eye-catching. "You can get ready now." Watching this scene from afar, Smith said with a trembling voice. Lu Qing was both nervous and expectant. At this moment he took out his black-rimmed glasses and put them on his nose bridge. He lowered the front of his baseball cap and covered half of his face with the shadows. He held a quarter in his right hand and let it flip and jump between his fingers. After parking the car and walking to the door, Joseph saw 4 students coming after hearing the news. They stood in a row and greeted him respectfully. He nodded satisfactorily and said a few words. Then he waved his hand and let the students leave. He closed the door and walked into the treasure room on the first floor. There were many carefully polished gems placed here. Some were bright red, some were clear green, and some were light blue like lake water. There were all kinds of gems, and as their radiance intertwined, they rippled with a sense of peace and tranquility. Other than that, there were also tree carvings, bone carvings, and other works of art on the shelves and tables. They all gave off a sense of spirituality. "Haha, they'll never find it." Joseph let out a smug and sinister laugh. He closed his eyes and released his own spirituality, immersing himself in the quiet light. It was as if he could see holy, pure, and beautiful faces. They were illusory and floating, like spirits that walked on water. Just as he sank into a drug-like frenzy, the doorbell suddenly rang. It rang again, and every sound was ear-piercing. Damn it! Why did he come early? Joseph opened his eyes in anger. His blue pupils were clearly bloodshot. He took a deep breath and calmed down. He turned and walked to the door. Since he was skilled and bold, he only glanced at the surveillance camera casually. After confirming that it was the food delivery guy, he reached out and opened the door. He saw the delivery guy with a baseball cap and a slightly lowered head. Oh. At that moment, Joseph, whose own spirit was powerful, suddenly felt as if he was facing a monster or a demon. At that moment, Lu Qing flicked his finger. The coin in the slit flew up with a clang, creating sparks of gold and red. It distorted its shape and shot towards Joseph's face. In 12 minutes, the patrolling police would pass by this place. Boom. When Joseph extended his fan-like palm to block, the coin that was infused with Emperor Yen force suddenly exploded. The fragments flew forward and split into 2, then into 4, and then into 8. The enemy was caught off guard and was only able to send 1/3 of the fragments flying. At that critical moment, a blue glow appeared on Joseph's body. It significantly reduced the speed of the shards, causing them to only leave a red mark on his skin. Lu Qing had just flicked the coin when he retracted his qi and blood. He quickly swung his left fist, which was covered in frost formed by ice shards, towards the enemy's lower abdomen. The meal box fell. Joseph's other fist rushed forward in a hurry, blocking his opponent's attack with exaggerated bulging muscles. Bam! The blue glow around Joseph instantly shrunk and seemed to have solidified. It was as if the sea had encountered a cold wave from the north and south poles. Ice spirit force. Lu Qing's left arm rebounded. His qi and blood gathered and then exploded. He shook his right shoulder and swung his heavy fist sideways, igniting a crimson flame. Boom. Just as Joseph was about to block, he was hit by a shockwave similar to an explosive explosion. The already solidified blue glow shattered and scattered in all directions, vanishing into thin air. His body couldn't take it anymore and he staggered backwards. Once Emperor Yen was out, the enemy was invincible. This was the fully formed Emperor Yen force. As Joseph retreated, Lu Qing took a step forward and threw a punch of Ice Spirit and Emperor Yen at the same time, leaving no gaps. He always maintained the optimal distance between each step, as if he was measuring accurately. Joseph couldn't retaliate, dodge, or escape. Bam 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 bam. Lu Qing was like a robot. Following a predetermined sequence, he ruthlessly unleashed his Dan force. Half of it was light, half of it was heavy, and he invited Emperor Yen. After 8 consecutive exchanges, Joseph, who didn't understand what was going on, felt hot and cold at the same time. His strong body began to tremble. If not for his many years of fame and the fact that he had recovered to his peak by absorbing pure spirits, he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Bam! Lu Qing took another step forward. Using the realm of encountering gods in the void, he activated his chi and blood, stimulating a certain part of his body. His muscles swelled and his fascias opened up. He seemed to have grown much taller. This was a simulation of the circulation of the fighting formula. The effect wasn't as good as the original, but the advantage was that there was no need to pronounce it. Boom. He swung his fist down and landed on Joseph's forearm. A ball of crimson flames burst out, creating a violent shockwave. His opponent's stance was forcefully broken and he staggered backwards. Then he took a sliding step and threw a punch forward. Joseph, who had not been able to use his strength, knew that he was in a desperate situation. He roared and awakened something hidden in the bottom of his heart. The scattered blue brilliance on the surface of his body shone again, and it was dyed with a dark red color that was close to black. Then he splashed it at the enemy who was sliding and punching. Lu Qing seemed to have been prepared for this. With a squeeze of his tailbone and a quick twist of his waist, he forcibly changed his direction and circled behind Joseph. The 19th move of the ice sect, Frost Devour. Whoosh! The dark red light splashed onto the ground, corroding a large pit. At the same time, Lu Qing visualized, turned his waist and back, and swung his fist at the enemy who couldn't dodge in time. His fist landed on the enemy's arm, which he hurriedly put up as a shield. Severe warning. With a muffled thud, the brilliance on Joseph's body completely froze and turned crystal clear. His eyes lost focus. Lu Qing didn't hold back and struck again. His fist went up from his waist like a cannon and landed on his opponent's abdomen, triggering an internal explosion. Boom. Joseph's body jerked and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He finally recovered from his frozen state. But before he could control his body, he was hit by Lu Qing's severe warning again. His vision was completely unfocused and he turned into an ice sculpture. Lu Qing took half a step forward and slapped Joseph's left temple with his right hand, knocking him out. Throughout the whole process, Joseph, who was ambushed, didn't have a chance. His every move was reflected in Lu Qing's ice mirror. Lu Qing clapped his hands and shook off the ice crystals. He didn't leave any fingerprints. Then he called Smith, who was waiting outside. "It's done," he reported concisely. There was silence on the other side. Only his breathing was getting heavier. "Lu seems to have just entered the door. Piss, it's Monday. I'm looking for a recommendation." Chapter 503. After a moment of silence, Smith replied with a trembling voice, "All right, I'll be right there." After ending the call, Lu Qing scanned his surroundings but couldn't find any valuable clues. He had no choice but to turn his attention back to the unconscious Joseph. In the previous battle, it seemed like it was easy for him to kill the Grandmaster of Combat without giving him a chance to retaliate. But in reality, to achieve such an effect, he had gone all out and held nothing back. With the ice mirror as the core, he had perfectly integrated his prediction, force, unique skill, footwork and other skills into one. That was how he had managed to subdue his opponent without any accidents. An inhuman mighty one wasn't as easy to deal with as he made it out to be. Because of that, he didn't hide the characteristics of his martial arts, nor could he. Even if he didn't know how he looked, Joseph would be able to find out who the attacker was after he regained consciousness. That would leave behind a rather troublesome trail. When he first thought about the Connecticut criminal cleanup plan, he was thinking that he could easily disguise the characteristics of his martial arts and mix in the techniques of the Jaruga sect. However, if he were to face a stronger enemy, once he was sure that he was guilty, it wasn't as if he couldn't be ruthless. It wasn't uncommon for people to have their brains damaged during a battle. Anyway, the American government would probably like such results. According to his master, their man-made weapons project urgently required grandmasters of combat who had been thoroughly brainwashed. But considering that he wasn't familiar with this place, he didn't have any information or clues. Rashly determining who was guilty and who deserved to die wasn't in line with his beliefs. Moreover, it could easily leave behind other influences. So he gave up on the sudden plan. It was as though he was playing a YY game. Who knew he would run into Smith? As agents, they should have more ways to deal with such situations. If it really doesn't work out, I'll do it myself. Step by step. As Lu Qing's thoughts raced, Smith had already parked the car. He maintained interference with the alarm system, walked into the villa, picked up the dropped lunchbox and closed the door. His gaze swept past Lu Qing, whose face was covered by his glasses, and landed on the unconscious Joseph on the ground. His facial muscles suddenly twitched and veins appeared in his eyes. It was as though he couldn't wait to pounce on him and chew on his enemy's flesh. "It's too fast. Sonny's father hasn't arrived yet. Let me do a preliminary search first. Smith was also an agent who had undergone years of training and evolved superpowers. He quickly calmed down. Lu Qing nodded slightly and said in a low voice, "If you can't find any clues, I can help." With his perception abilities after breaking through the ice mirror, he might be able to see more than an experienced person and discover subtle clues. Through his communication with the gem Fae and other evidence, he was almost certain that Joseph was the murderer. He was the butcher, who was the main source of the Connecticut girl's nightmares. That was why he was so certain. There were many superhumans and psychics in the United States. If there was any other evidence, the case would have been solved long ago. In other words, Joseph's villa was the key to the case. Smith believed that he could find something here, and so did Lu Qing. Okay, you can deal with the scene first. Smith took out the device and began to search from the first floor. He opened the door of the treasure room and cast most of his eyes on the shiny bone sculpture. However, due to the process of identification, he could not make a direct judgment. He could only knock on it to check and scrape off the debris. Lu Qing, on the other hand, used pure fire force and ice force to give Joseph a few hits, destroying the remaining symptoms of Emperor Yen force and ice spirit force. He also cleaned up the traces of the battle in the living room to ensure that he did not miss any clues that belonged to him. After a few minutes, when Smith was feeling a little impatient because he could not find any evidence, the doorbell rang. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes. His hair stood on end as he prepared himself for action. Smith came out of the treasure room and waved his hand. "It's Sonny's father. We have to hurry. The delivery guy will be here in 10 minutes. As he spoke, he walked to the door and took a look at the surveillance camera. He unsealed the door and let in a middle-aged man with gray hair and sagging cheeks. Oh. Lu Qing was stunned. He muttered to himself, "Isn't this the same Cole who followed Joseph's student, Lindello, to practice the Jaruga technique? In the morning, I was still surprised that he did not become a combat apprentice despite being a professional ninth pin fighter. He seemed to have to awaken his own spirit before he could make the promotion. From the looks of it, he has other plans." As soon as Cole stepped in, his eyes were attracted to Joseph on the floor. His tightly shut mouth made the sound of grinding teeth. The flesh on his sagging cheeks trembled. His gaze was filled with hatred, violence, and madness. It was as though he could melt and penetrate the body of his enemy. "Uncle Cole, hurry up," reminded Smith. Cole panted heavily. He forcibly retracted his gaze and began to scan his surroundings. He did not recognize Lu Qing. He only nodded gratefully at this superhero, who was wearing a baseball cap and black-framed glasses. He could not see his face clearly. "He's Sonny's father?" Lu Qing asked in a low voice while Cole was looking elsewhere with a sorrowful expression. He believed that with Smith's monitoring of him, he should know that he was in the same class as Cole. "Yes. Uncle Cole wants to become Joseph's student so he can guard this place," answered Smith with a gloomy and pained expression. "Isn't he afraid of being discovered?" asked Lu Qing, puzzled. For a devil who has killed at least 40 innocent girls, how can he remember their many relatives? Uncle Cole divorced Sonny's mother a long time ago. "He only comes to visit her a few times a year," said Smith after a moment of silence. "He regrets his choice back then." While the two of them were talking, Cole seemed to have been summoned by something and heard a voice. A layer of mist appeared in his gray eyes. He turned around and walked towards the treasure room. He stared at the crimson gem and muttered to himself, "What a pity. Sonny, is that you? Sonny, is that you?" He extended his right hand and touched the surface of the gemstone with trembling hands. Suddenly, the gemstone lit up as though it had been illuminated by a strong light. Patches of crimson jumped out from the gemstone and caressed Cole's cheeks. "Sonny, Sonny," Cole shouted in a low voice. The fog in his eyes condensed into droplets of water that slid down his rough face and grayish-white beard stubble. The surrounding gemstones and sculptures were affected by this as they shimmered with spiritual light, enveloping the treasure room in a sorrowful and gloomy atmosphere. "Sonny." Smith rushed in with large strides and kept muttering softly. He vaguely felt the warmth that the blonde girl had once given him, as though it was yesterday. He believed that he had found a clue. Stimulated by the spirituality, the unconscious Joseph's eyes moved as he slowly woke up. He heard "Sonny" again and again and felt the signs of the spiritual object's radiance going out of control. "I've been discovered," he said wistfully. What? Smith turned around abruptly and rushed to Joseph's side. He shouted, "Why did you kill Sonny?" "Sonny?" Joseph clearly didn't remember who Sonny was. Perhaps he never knew the names of those innocent girls. After a short pause, he smiled without any hint of remorse. Because they are pure and holy spirits. Cole held the bright red gem in his hand, and his pupils reflected a crimson color. He shouted sorrowfully, "Where's her body?" Joseph revealed an intoxicated expression. It was so perverse that it made one's hair stand on end. Part of it became a spiritual object. The rest merged with me. Wretch. Lu Qing, who understood the meaning behind his words, almost spat out the coffee he had just drunk. Demon, you're a demon. Cole panted and cursed as he approached Joseph step by step. Poor Sonny. She didn't do anything. Because of this, she was innocently murdered. She didn't even know the murderer's reason. She must have been confused, puzzled, and confused at that time. Joseph ignored Cole and Smith's reactions. He struggled to look at the delivery boy who had defeated him. However, all he could see was his pants, clothes, black-rimmed glasses, and baseball cap. He was 176 to 178 meters tall. His body was covered by clothes and his skin was covered with ice crystals. He couldn't tell which race he was from, but his spirit was very, very strong. Are you the new superhero? Joseph asked in a hoarse voice as he rolled his blue eyes. He wanted to know why Lu Qing interfered and why he was attacked. No, Lu Qing answered with simple words. Well, I can't reveal that I was here to eliminate the source of the threat to Ko. That would alert Smith and the rest of them to my weakness. Joseph killed women for the pure and holy spirit. He didn't limit his targets to younger girls. He might have targeted Ko, who had the talent for meditation. Then you're doing this for justice? The bane of criminals? Joseph sneered. Not really, Lu Qing answered frankly. Joseph was stunned for a moment. He blurted out, then why are you here? Why are you targeting me? Lu Qing thought for a moment. He lowered the brim of his baseball cap and said, I have nothing better to do. Theoretically speaking, I do have too much free time. That's why I have the time to indulge in whimsical thoughts. Coincidentally, I've always been good at taking action. Nothing better to do. Joseph was stunned. He didn't expect this at all. Just because I have too much free time, I'm being targeted? Fuck. Shit. What kind of stupid reason is this? The anger in his heart turned into flames. He couldn't wait to get up and bite Lu Qing. In that instant, he felt the confusion, doubt, and pain that Sonny and the rest felt when they were innocently killed. In his sorrow, Smith thought that Lu Qing was merely retaliating verbally against Joseph. Amused, he walked over and took out a metal box the size of a palm. From the box, he took out a syringe, a needle, and a liquid that glowed with a faint golden light. After assembling the syringe, Smith injected the liquid into Joseph's body. He turned to Lu Qing and smiled. Muscle-slowing agent. It will make him feel weak for an hour. Also, it has serious side effects that will damage his recent memories. If he was in good condition, he might be able to pull through. But now may God bless him. Not bad. Lu Qing nodded in satisfaction. Smith stood up, glanced at his watch and said to Lu Qing, I'll send you off first. Uncle Cole watched the scene. Okay. Cole replied in a deep voice, his eyes fixed on Joseph. After Smith and Lu Qing left the villa, got into the car and drove away, Cole let out a maniacal laugh and slowly approached Joseph. What are you going to do? Joseph, who had been waiting calmly for a lawyer, finally panicked. In the car, Lu Qing glanced at Smith and sighed. You should be able to guess what happened in the villa. Uncle Cole is determined to pay the price. Smith didn't answer directly. Lu Qing didn't say anything else and closed his eyes. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 504. Near Connecticut University, Smith stopped the car by the roadside and turned to Lu Qing. I have to go back as soon as possible to settle the remaining matters. Don't worry, there won't be any surveillance footage left behind. Okay. Lu Qing nodded, unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car. He had taken 2 steps when he heard Harding call out, Hey! Oh. What? Lu Qing looked back and saw that Smith had already rolled down the car window, leaned over and stuck his head out. His eyes were pained but sincere. His voice was low and slow as he said, Thank you. Lu Qing smiled and shook his head. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked towards the school gate that he was used to going in and out of. With the appearance of the butcher and his revenge, Smith could finally vent the pain and suffering that had accumulated over the past 5 years. Lu Qing had already taken off his black-rimmed glasses and returned to his usual appearance. He went to the supermarket and bought a bottle of water. He was so bored that he first chilled it and then heated it again until Yenjika's lessons were over and she was about to leave school. Throughout this process he wasn't as bored as he appeared to be. He had been seriously summarizing his experience in the battle with Joseph. Although he had obtained an overwhelming advantage in this battle, chaining his opponent to the point of death, and was unable to unleash the various miraculous and tyrannical aspects of the Jiruga sect, he could look at it from a different perspective. For example, if he were to be ambushed and fall into a passive state, how would he turn the situation around and break out of his predicament? For example, if Joseph were to change his response to a certain choice, would it have been better for him? If that was the case, how should he continue to exert sufficient pressure? A lost battle required contemplation, but so did a victorious battle. And this was the first battle after Lu Cheng's breakthrough with the ice mirror. With it as the core of the battle, there was still much to be summarized. Holding a bottle of mineral water with ice cubes floating in his hand, Lu Cheng stood at the school gate of Connecticut University, waiting for Ko and Aunt Du to come out. At this moment, Huang Shiwen, with her chubby cheeks and gorgeous face, was chatting and laughing with a few girls she was close with as they rushed towards the school gate. They were going to have a wild party tonight. As her gaze wandered, Huang Shiwen suddenly saw a familiar figure and couldn't help but tremble. He was the man of the hour in Songqing University. The news of him and Lin Kei winning the national championship was still a hot topic in the school forum. More importantly, he was Yenjika's boyfriend. Lu Qing? Why is he here? Huang Shiwen looked at the well-defined, masculine face with a hint of gentleness. Her heart felt as if it had sunk into an ice cave, enduring the cold of dozens of degrees below zero. He hasn't broken up with Yenjika? Did Yenjika badmouth me in front of him? Will he hit me? Is it too late to call the police now? I heard that people who practice martial arts are impulsive. Huang Shiwen's thoughts surged, and all of them deviated in a bad direction. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. With Lu Cheng's rumored strength, even if the police arrived, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Ask Wolf for help? He was the apprentice of the senior martial artist Joseph's student. Even though he definitely wouldn't be able to defeat Lu Cheng, he could use Mr. Joseph's name to scare him off. Aya, what am I thinking? I haven't done anything bad to Yenjika, and I've been inviting her to parties out of kindness to broaden her social circle. I have a clear conscience. Moreover, she was indeed very introverted, very antisocial, and very unsociable at Kingstown University. She also dressed like an old aunt. I wasn't wrong. I'm not afraid of Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng gazed at the entrance, his gaze sweeping past many figures as he searched for his little fairy. Suddenly he saw an Asian girl. Judging from her appearance, she should be Chinese. Huang Shiwen's calves suddenly trembled under his gaze. Beads of cold sweat formed on her forehead, and the back of her gauze skirt showed signs of being soaked. Lola, what's wrong? A girl beside her shouted the American name Huang Shiwen gave herself. Aye. Huang Shiwen couldn't form a sound. She anxiously tugged at her classmate, indicating that she wanted to take a detour to go home. There are quite a lot of fellow countrymen here. Lu Cheng thought casually. His eyes suddenly lit up, reflecting Yenjika's figure. Through her tied-up hair and big black-framed glasses, he saw her inner beauty. He smiled and walked up to her. He heard someone shouting Luala. It seemed that the Chinese girl just now had fainted. There are quite a lot of kind-hearted people. I will make a red scarf. Lu Cheng held Yenjika's left hand and took over her bag and sundries. He felt that his heart had really settled down and become unusually steady. It was as though he had returned to a warm and peaceful home. The residual emotions from his surprise attack on the Inhuman had completely dissipated. What's going on there? Yenjika looked curiously at the side, which was surrounded by layers upon layers of people. I think a girl fainted. The weather changes drastically. It's easy to catch a cold if you're not careful. Lu Cheng said whatever came to mind. He had already calmed down and his expression was relaxed. Yenjika vaguely saw that the surrounded girl had already woken up and was being carried away by kind-hearted people. She didn't care much and returned home with Lu Cheng. While waiting for Aunt Du to prepare dinner, she dragged the worrisome Cheng upstairs and sat on the edge of the bed. She coughed lightly, pursed her lips and deliberately kept a straight face. Tell me, what bad things did you do in the afternoon? Her eyes were bright and full of curiosity. Cough, I went to catch a psychopathic murderer. Lu Cheng summarized the main point. Psychopathic murderer? Yenjika's clear eyes widened. They were filled with confusion and doubt. All the guesses she made in the afternoon had come to nothing. You should have heard of Butcher, right? Lu Cheng asked. He was a notorious criminal in Kingstown. Yes, I've heard of him. Empress Dowager even summarized a few key areas where Butcher committed his crimes. She told me not to go there for no reason. It's better to be safe than sorry. You caught him? Do you know who he is? Yenjika couldn't keep a straight face anymore. She was like a little girl who wanted to hear a story. Lu Qing walked to the girl's side and sat down. He nodded and said, "It's Joseph, a senior martial artist from the Jaruga sect. Didn't I sign up for the advanced course? When I was communicating with the gem to awaken my own spirit, I sensed the hidden bloodthirst of the grinder, which is Joseph. Originally, I didn't have any other evidence. If I went to him directly, I would easily become a criminal and be deported. That's why I didn't want to do it at first. Later, the head of the Secret Service, Smith, who was in charge of monitoring me, contacted me. His girlfriend, Sunny, was a victim of Butcher." Without waiting for Lu Qing to finish, Yenjika was stunned. She changed her position and blurted out, "There's a Secret Service monitoring you? Is there really a surveillance system?" "That's right, we'll also monitor when experts from other countries enter the country. Which do you want me to talk about first? Secret Service or Butcher?" Lu Qing was amused. Both. Yenjika had already let down her hair and removed her glasses. Her eyes were bright and clear. After answering, she suddenly let out an "Aya," and blurted out in relief, "Thank goodness we drew the curtains." Before she could finish, the girl shut her mouth. Her pretty face was as red as a peach, making Lu Cheng's heart skip a beat. He cleared his mind and answered firmly, "I've seen their surveillance footage. It only covers my activities outside. If Smith dares to peep, I'll let him know what it means to lose his memory from a beating." Seeing that Yenjika didn't want to talk about this topic, Lu Qing changed the topic and described the general situation. "Although Joseph is similar to an inhuman, I've improved recently. Moreover, it was a surprise attack, so subduing him was a sure thing. What I'm most worried about is actually the problem of cleaning up. I'm afraid that exposing my identity will bring you trouble. This is also why I didn't want to do it at first. However, with Smith around, it won't be a problem. As for Uncle Cole, he will definitely turn himself in. However, he doesn't know who I am and doesn't know me. Even if the Jaruga sect finds a corresponding superpower user, they won't be able to trace it back to me." Listening to Lu Cheng's tireless narration, she thought of the girls who were harmed by the demon Butcher, the pain that Cole and Smith had to endure, and the determination of that father who was willing to pay the price. Yenjika had mixed feelings. Her eyes reddened, filled with resentment and sympathy. Those poor innocent girls. That perverted criminal with no remorse. She suddenly reached out and patted Lu Cheng's shoulder. Biting her lip, she nodded seriously. "Ching, you've done a great job. One of the main goals of my dream of practicing martial arts is to be a chivalrous and righteous swordsman. You fulfilled all my expectations in this regard." As she spoke, her voice gradually softened. However, she couldn't help but remind him at the end, "If the bad guy is stronger than you, just leave him alone for now." "I'm not stupid." Lu Qing laughed. Then he corrected the girl's perception of him. "Actually, I didn't look for Joseph because I hate evil and want to be a chivalrous person. This is only a small part of the reason." "Then what is it?" Yenjika blinked blankly. She couldn't think of a second reason. Lu Qing cleared his throat and said smugly, "Joseph's target is Joseph. Joseph's target is a girl with a pure and holy spirit. Although the possibility isn't high, I'm still afraid that he'll set his sights on you one day. Therefore, we have to take precautions and eliminate this hidden danger." He described the Connecticut criminal cleanup plan that he came up with blindly. Yenjika was stunned at first. Then she gradually calmed down. She pursed her lips and stared at Lu Qing with rippling eyes. When Lu Qing finished, she moved her arms and said in amusement, "You're really?" She couldn't come up with a reason. She pretended to be wronged and looked at Lu Qing with bright eyes. She bit her lower lip and said, "I've been impure for a long time. I've been tainted by you." "Haha, it's normal for married girls to be tainted." Lu Qing laughed softly. Yenjika narrowed her eyes and picked up her phone. She leaned into her husband's arms and said, "Let me check if there are any reports." 10 seconds later, she saw the news. She acted as a human translator and said, "The Butcher that has plagued Connecticut for a decade has finally shown himself. A victim's father is a new superhero, Deliverman. Deliverman. Deliverman." "Huh?" Yenjika burst out laughing and stopped reading. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He was very dissatisfied with his superhero nickname. "Yes, very dissatisfied. It's not cool at all. P.S. There are too many people on the list this week. I can't even get into the top 15. Chapter 505. After laughing for a while, Yinjika raised her head and looked at the dissatisfied Lu Qing. She deliberately frowned and said, I remember you said you would be my personal delivery boy. Didn't you say you would only deliver food to me? You liar. As she spoke, the corners of her mouth curled up again, unable to keep a straight face. Lu Qing reached out and held the girl's waist. He cleared his throat and laughed. I didn't deliver takeout to Joseph. Don't tell me I should tell him. Sir, your severe warning has arrived, your Emperor Yen force has arrived, and the DF-21 you ordered has been launched? Qing, I realize you're getting better at talking. Tell me, did you learn bad things from Talker? Yinjika laughed and leaned comfortably in Lu Qing's arms. She picked up her phone and read the rest of the news. When the police arrived, the living room of the villa was covered in blood. Joseph's body? She couldn't continue reading. She felt her appetite disappear instantly. Lu Qing lowered his head and saw the few lines of words with his strong eyesight. Cole vented his pain and hatred to his heart's content. He drained Joseph's blood and dismembered his body. He even tried to chop it up and burn it, destroying everything beyond recognition. Lu Qing sighed and clicked his tongue as he watched. At the same time, he was even more certain of the subsequent developments. If that was the case, the coroner probably wouldn't be able to discover that Joseph had been frozen. Pure explosions and flames were mostly controlled by experts. Cole also completely destroyed the villa's surveillance system. The experts couldn't recover the damage. Yinjika skipped the first part of the news and translated the following description. Cole truthfully confessed his crimes, but didn't mention the deliverman. Even if the relevant personnel used superpowers to induce him, they couldn't find anything. We can make an outline of the deliverman. He's good at computers and is a very good hacker. He can hack into the police system and cut off the connection between the alarm system and the police station. He's very good at fighting and is stronger than the veteran martial artist Joseph. He has the superpower to create explosions. He likes to dress up as a delivery boy. After reading, Yinjika pursed her lips and looked at Lu Qing. She nodded, seriously, and said, based on what they listed, even your wife wouldn't recognize you. They're thinking too much? Lu Qing shook his head, amused. That's for the best. As a person with a big heart, he had already forgotten that unimpressive nickname. At this time, Du Yin finished preparing dinner and urged them to go downstairs. Affected by the news, Yinjika only ate a little, while Lu Qing ate a lot to make up for his previous consumption. After dinner, the girl turned on her computer and busied herself with reports. Lu Qing took the menu, lit the table lamp, and sat beside her. Sometimes he would study cooking, sometimes he would look up news, sometimes he would watch videos of the Jaruga sect, and sometimes he would turn his head to admire the girl's soft and beautiful side profile. Your report looks quite complicated. After a few glances, he sighed. Fortunately, there's no rush. I'll hand it in next week. Right now, I'm just doing a simple preliminary research to facilitate tomorrow's group discussion. Yinjika tucked her hair behind her ear, picked up the cup and took a sip. She unlocked the screen of her phone and looked at the discussions in several groups. She blurted out, the girl who fainted just now is Huang Shiwen. Huang Shiwen? How come she fainted? Lu Qing had heard of this name before. He knew that she was a classmate of his little fairy and was in the same training program. She was good at socializing and often invited his wife to parties, which annoyed her since she didn't like such occasions. She turned from tactful evasions to outright rejections. Yinjika looked at her husband suspiciously. Seeing that he was sincere and didn't seem to be faking it, she shook her head and answered, I don't know. Maybe it's because she has to play and study at the same time. She often stays up late and her health is deteriorating. Huang Shiwen fainted the moment Qing showed up. Could it be that he secretly used a secret technique to help me vent my anger? No, I didn't say anything bad about Huang Shiwen to him. At most, I just complained that he was too warm and friendly. I couldn't stand it. Maybe Huang Shiwen had a guilty conscience and fainted after seeing Qing? While thinking, Yinjika made a guess and felt inexplicably good. This is good. I didn't cause any trouble and I feel like I vented my anger. Because there weren't many tasks, she was quite relaxed. From time to time, she would chat with Lu Qing and chat about other topics. When Lu Qing saw interesting news or videos, he would also share them with her for fun. This kind of learning scene was very warm and comfortable. The only problem was that the efficiency was too low. Yinjika didn't finish collecting the simple information until it was close to 9 o'clock. It's all your fault. She looked at the time and kicked Lu Qing lightly with her slipper-clad foot. You made me lose focus. Is this called fatale? Lu Qing laughed and made fun of himself. After flirting for a while, Yanjika suddenly heard her stomach growling. She looked up and said in an aggrieved tone, "Qing, I'm hungry. As the exclusive delivery boy, it's time for you to show off. I didn't eat much for dinner because of that news. I promised to complete the task." Lu Qing took out his phone and searched for a nearby 24-hour restaurant. There weren't many restaurants in Connecticut. Only a few were open after 9 o'clock. Seeing that he was searching carefully, Yanjika's dimples appeared. She suggested excitedly, "Do you want me to go with you? I haven't eaten supper since I came here." "Okay, I'll drive." "You have a driver's license here?" Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. "Of course, it's not hard to get a driver's license here. I followed Andu in August and passed the test." "Awesome, right?" Yanjika raised her chin proudly. "I admire you the most." Lu Qing praised exaggeratedly. While they were in high spirits, the couple took the keys and drove out. They went straight to a 24-hour restaurant that Yanjika had heard about for a long time. It was famous for its local specialty pies. The night was hazy and the wind was blowing. It was quiet all around. The north of Connecticut was not as lively as the big cities. As the car sped up, Lu Qing had to remind Ku to stay steady and not step on the accelerator. After a while, a figure appeared at the intersection in front of them. He was wearing a black cloak and was dressed strangely. He was waving his arms to stop the car. "What's going on?" With her husband beside her, Yanjika was very brave. She stopped the car after muttering a few words and looked over in confusion. The cloaked man opened his mouth and spat out a string of words with some slang. Lu Qing was stunned. He only understood that the cloaked man was trying to say that there was danger ahead. When he communicated with Smith, he knew that Lu Qing was an outsider, so he would slow down and reduce his slang and non-standard grammar. "What did he say?" Lu Qing asked in a low voice. "He said that the Black Forest area ahead is the slums. The security there is very bad. Robberies are common. Try not to go there during the day. It's more dangerous at night. He suggested that we take a detour." Yanjika translated dutifully and expressed her opinion. Although the surveillance network in America is very mature, due to various reasons, it's only limited to certain streets. For example, in the lower levels of the city, most of the devices are broken and most of them are in disrepair. After pausing for a second, she glanced at Lu Qing and whispered, "I have the superhero, the Deliverman, to protect me. I'm not afraid of bad security." After that, the couple looked at each other and smiled. They waved at the cloaked man outside. "Thank you." Then Yanjika turned on the turn signal and drove to another road. "I can't let their good intentions go to waste." The cloaked man nodded in satisfaction as he watched them drive away. He felt a sense of accomplishment. "Oh yeah, why is he waiting there to remind people?" Lu Qing muttered after a few seconds. Yanjika said with a smile, "He said that he was a superhero. Although he was not strong and was not recognized by everyone, he always wanted to do something good within his power. Seeing that many people unknowingly entered the Black Forest area at night and suffered losses and even injuries, he stopped cars here every day to remind them." Lu Qing was touched by her words. He sighed with peace of mind. "I think this superhero culture in the United States is quite interesting. Every country has its own unique characteristics." Yeah. Yanjika nodded in agreement. Then she frowned in confusion. "But he's wearing a black cloak to stop cars. Other than people like us who would dare to stop at night. No wonder he said it wasn't effective. That makes sense." Lu Qing was stunned. Yanjika left in high spirits and returned home when it was 9:40 p.m. After a hearty meal, Yanjika returned home. Shower and sleep. The girl rested for a while, grabbed her pajamas and change of clothes and walked to the door. Before she left, she looked back at Lu Qing warily. Seeing that he didn't intend to follow her, she walked into the bathroom. "Seriously, am I that perverted?" Lu Qing laughed and shook his head. After a while, the sound of running water stopped. Yanjika came back with a towel wrapped around her head. Her nightdress tonight was slightly different from usual. It was a spaghetti strap style, revealing her delicate collarbones, beautiful shoulders and fair skin. Lu Qing was stunned when he saw it. "I always wear this. I was too embarrassed to wear it in front of you before." "Humph, you said that I'm a married girl. What's there to be afraid of?" Yanjika forced herself to explain. Her cheeks were flushed because she had just taken a bath. "It looks good." Lu Qing didn't answer her question. He walked over and volunteered, "I'll help you dry your hair." "Okay." Yenjika sat down, took off the wet towel and let Lu Qing dry her hair. Smelling the fragrance and lowering his head, he saw the breathtaking beauty. Droplets of water slid down her slender white neck and stopped at her delicate collarbone. Lu Qing couldn't hold himself back no matter how hard he tried. When her hair was only half dry, he kissed her. The girl moaned and softened in his arms. The room was full of romantic scenes. Going to bed on time became an extravagant hope. After a while, Lu Qing lay down with satisfaction and hugged Yenjika's trembling body. Applying what I've learned is pretty good, he thought with a smile. Yenjika paused for a few seconds, gritted her teeth and wrote 3 words on Lu Cheng's chest. Big pervert. With Lu Cheng's control of his body, he could easily recognize it. He read it out with a smile. Yenjika rolled her eyes at him and started writing again. Big hooligan. Lu Qing read it out proudly. Yenjika pursed her lips and moved her fingers again to write. Big idiot. Big idiot. Big hero, ha. Lu Qing read them one by one and turned his head to look at the girl. He found that Yenjika had already turned her head and looked to the side. In a dark corner of the street, Smith, who was on night shift, received a call from his superior. Any unusual movements from the target? Did he leave the surveillance? Asked the other side in a deep voice. Joseph was defeated by a new superhero. Every dangerous person in Connecticut was a suspect and had to be questioned. Smith answered without blushing or panting, "No, he's very obedient." "Very good." The superior didn't say anything else because he didn't think that Lu was suspicious. According to the available information, this dangerous person was no different from Joseph. The next morning, Lu Qing continued his training. After everything was done, he sent the girl to school and jogged to the Musashi martial arts gym. He planned to participate in the class as if nothing had happened. $5,000 can't be wasted. I'll go to the Dragon Punch dojo in the afternoon to see the legendary Zhu something. Chapter 506. On a Wednesday morning, the wind in Connecticut was mild and pleasant. Lu Qing jogged through the streets, occasionally looking up at the web-like surveillance cameras. He knew that Smith and the other agents were monitoring him. However, he could detect the devices and whether the cameras were aimed at him, but he couldn't determine whether they were aimed at him or not. It was even more impossible for him to detect where Smith and the rest were hiding. This was the difference between martial arts and modern technology. Nothing in this world is omnipotent. Too bad I wanted to knock on their car window and say hello to give them a scare. Lu Qing couldn't help but think mischievously. On the next street, Smith, who had changed his car, was drinking coffee and munching on a burger. Beside him, his subordinate was focused on the surveillance screen. After watching for a while, a young man with thin, blonde hair smiled casually. "Boss, the target looked at the famous criminals and cases in Connecticut yesterday afternoon. The butcher was taken down in the afternoon. If you hadn't been keeping an eye on him, I would have suspected that he was the delivery man. He went to challenge Joseph and let Cole take advantage of him." He had wanted to imitate Smith's use of cut and spar, but he couldn't remember the weird pronunciation. Smith calmly finished the rest of his coffee and replied with a smile. From the data of the target in the past month, he might be able to defeat Joseph, but he won't be able to subdue him. He won't even be able to cause significant damage to him. "I think so too." The young man stroked his thin hair and muttered casually, "I heard that there's a powerful hair tonic in China?" Smith took the opportunity to change the topic. He didn't look guilty at all. He had hacked into a company last night and optimized the search results. When searching for information about the victim, Sunny, her boyfriend, was placed at the very end of the search results. The corresponding photo was also altered and deleted. It had been 5 years and most people's memories of this had faded. It was difficult for them to remember such an insignificant figure in the case. As long as the relationship between Smith and Sunny wasn't discovered, there wouldn't be any problems. "The things I've worked hard to learn over the past 5 years have finally come in handy." Smith crumpled the food packaging into a ball, rolled down the car window, and threw it from afar, accurately sending it into the trash can. The entire process was escorted by a thread. The moment Lu Qing stepped into the Musashi martial arts gym, he could feel a stifling atmosphere. The instructors and students walking in and out of the gym either kept a straight face, remained silent, or whispered in each other's ears. After a few steps, just as he was about to turn the corner, he suddenly saw Olsen, the 2-meter-tall giant that he had met the day before. Olsen was approaching him. His skin was so dark that it was shiny. His scalp was smooth without any hair. His expression was solemn and dignified. "Hey little boy, I heard that your fighting skills are pretty good?" Olsen suddenly opened his mouth, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. His smile was not forced at all. Before Lu Qing could answer, another coach passed by. Olsen instantly shut his mouth and put on a solemn and sorrowful expression. "That's the legendary face-changing special skill. Looks like I'm not on good terms with Joseph." Lu Qing shook his head in amusement as he watched Olsen brush past him. He picked up his phone and shared the news with Ko. Immediately after, he turned into the exclusive training ground and saw the red-eyed girl, Hathaway, and the other students. There was no doubt that Cole had not come. After the few of them greeted each other, a Caucasian student rushed over. He asked in shock and doubt, "What happened? Why is there a demonstration outside and blocking the main entrance?" "Jack, didn't you watch the news?" Hathaway blurted out in shock. "So, did I miss something?" Jack spread his hands blankly. "I was at a party last night and partied till midnight. I came here after waking up. Mr. Joseph, no, Johnny Joseph has been proven to be the butcher. He died because of Cole's revenge." Another male student explained quickly. Lu Qing almost didn't understand. Luckily, he could guess what the other person was trying to say. That was why he could barely make sense of it. Jack's mouth was wide open. After a while, he scratched his head and said, "Are you kidding me? How could Mr. Joseph be the butcher? Even if he was Cole, 10 Coles wouldn't be able to kill him. That's because there's a new superhero, the Deliver Man, helping him," Hathaway answered with fear and respect. Who would have thought that the usually dignified and powerful martial artist Joseph was actually the devil hiding around us? Luckily, we didn't have much contact with him. Luckily, the Deliver Man upheld justice and exposed the butcher's mask. "Really?" Jack took out his phone and browsed the news. After a few minutes, he exclaimed and burst out with a series of words. Lu Qing was stunned. "Oh my God! Is this real? So cool." After expressing his emotions intensely, Jack pointed outside and said, "So, that's a protest against Joseph?" "No, they're calling for a boycott of the Jaruga sect. It's organized by the mission. They say that all things have spirit is the path of the devil and will make people degenerate like Joseph," Hathaway said worriedly. She was worried that the Musashi martial arts arena would be affected. "We're not the weird guys from the Kagri sect. Our focus is on fighting. The Jaruga sect is covered in dirty water. They can't even take care of themselves." "I'm relieved." Lu Qing smiled as he listened. "The conflict between the mission sect and the nature sect runs deep. Hee, will the Jaruga sect suspect that the Deliver Man is the mission's doing? If that's the case, the Jaruga sect and the Musashi martial arts arena will have to cut ties with Joseph. At least on the surface, no one will investigate this matter." The few students chatted worriedly for a while. A female coach with short blonde hair came over and said in a deep voice, "Lin Luodong will cooperate with the investigation. I hope he's not involved in any of the butcher's past cases. I'll be in charge of your lessons for the next few days. You can call me Madam Annie." She's calling him the butcher directly? That's a quick cut. Lu Qing sighed to himself. He began practicing his fighting techniques with Annie. During sparring, he controlled his body with the ice mirror and restrained his instinctive moves. He purely used boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. This gave him a different kind of experience. He looked back at his instinctive reactions during combat and improved himself from the details. Although she had some concerns, Annie had already awakened her own spirit. Her corresponding spiritual cultivation wasn't weak, so she maintained a calm state throughout. She earnestly completed the awakening teaching and other content, allowing Lu Qing to gain some insights. When the lesson ended, Lu Qing took a shower and changed his clothes. He carried the bag and left the Musashi martial arts arena without looking back. He had lunch with Yenjika and chatted about the butcher's case in school. After Yenjika's lesson, he bought a bottle of water and walked leisurely to the Dragon Punch Dojo of China. It was a short distance away and only took him 3 to 5 minutes. After leaving the Musashi martial arts arena, Jack invited Asel and the other students he was close to his rented apartment for a meal. He specially ordered pizza, chicken wings, cola, and other food. When they gathered together, the topic of conversation was always about the butcher and the Deliver Man. The more they talked, the more excited they got. They made many guesses and finished criticizing each other. At this moment, the doorbell rang and the sound echoed throughout the living room. "Who is it?" Asel asked instinctively. Jack stood up and walked to the door. He didn't care and smiled. "The takeout is here." Just as he said the word takeout, it was as though a magical spell had been cast on him. He froze on the spot and the discussions in the room were instantly silenced. Don't tell me it's really the Deliverman? Jack swallowed his saliva and forced a smile. As he spoke, he carefully opened the door and made many confirmations. After a long mental journey, he finally got the pizza, chicken wings, and other food. Just an ordinary delivery guy. Jack turned around and shrugged. Everyone was relieved at first, then disappointed. Similar scenes were happening in many places in Connecticut. Especially the children, they were filled with fantasies. After Lu Qing arrived at the Dragon Punch Dojo of China, he waited at the front desk and saw the skinny young man, Li Zuanping. "Is Dojo Master Zhu here?" he asked excitedly. Li Zuanping was all smiles. "He's here. He's doing a demonstration. If you were an hour later he would have left." That's good, that's good." Lu Qing nodded with a smile. He followed Li Zuanping into the training grounds and saw layers and layers of people in front of him. There were white, black, yellow, and brown people. "Watch carefully. If you sign up, there will be many more opportunities like this." Li Zuanping extended his hand from behind and tried to pat Lu Qing on the shoulder. However, Lu Qing happened to take a step diagonally, causing his hand to miss. At this moment, Lu Qing pulled his fascia and shook his muscles. Anyone who came into contact with him felt as though they had touched a loach. They slid half a step away without realizing it, allowing him to easily squeeze to the front. In the middle of the training grounds, a Chinese man in his 50s was slowly practicing the routine. His punches and kicks were natural and seemed to have some foundation. Of course, this foundation was only relative. Lu Qing was stunned. He couldn't believe that this was the legendary dojo master Zhu. Very average. Zhu Hong's hair had turned a little white, showing the vicissitudes of life. He was quite good-looking and had the temperament of a grandmaster. After practicing for a while, he settled his feet and got into a stance. 6 students came out to push him. Before Lu Qing could react, 4 muscular men had already entered the training grounds. There were white and black people. Then 2 excited students joined the team. They lined up in a row as though they were participating in a tug-of-war competition. The latter pushed the former, and in the end they pushed Zhu Hong's palms. Yaya. The 6 men used all their strength but still couldn't push the skinny dojo master. This attracted the excited cheers of the other students. Lu Qing, on the other hand, was at a loss with his mouth half open. From the changes in his waist, abdomen, and legs, only the 2 at the end had exerted their strength. Not only did the other 4 not help, but they even slowed him down and offset his strength. Are they King liars? The corner of Lu Qing's mouth twitched. Chapter 507. After watching for a while, Lu Qing was both annoyed and amused. He wasn't in the mood to waste any more time. If one were to say that Gym Master Zhu was a complete liar, that wouldn't be the case. He obviously had a decent foundation in martial arts. Back in the day he was probably only a piece of paper away from the Danchi realm. However, due to his advancing age he no longer had any hope of making a breakthrough. Although the dragon fist he created couldn't be said to be stunning, it was still a combination of techniques from several countries. It was simple and powerful and was suitable for beginners. Given his situation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to set up a martial arts dojo in Chinatown near Connecticut University to earn some retirement money. However, if he wanted to make a name for himself, set up a signboard, set up a chain, and earn a huge sum of money, that would be beyond his reach. He could only rely on trickery to make up for his lack of martial arts. He could only rely on exaggerated performances to win over those who shared the same roots or the local masses, who yearned for the mysterious martial arts of China. From a practical point of view, Dojo Master Zhu was a great success, gaining both fame and fortune. On one hand, it was because he was very rational and clear-headed. He never had any conflicts with the local tyrants like the Jaruga sect, nor did he try to snatch their resources. He only took in those who were eliminated. On the other hand, normal challengers couldn't do anything to him. Moreover, there were also strong and sturdy disciples who had received the true teachings to take care of him. On the other hand, whether one could master martial arts or not depended on one's master. Even if a student failed, there would be plenty of reasons to explain it. No one would find fault because of this. Just like the Musashi martial arts gym, there were also a large number of failures. Gently shaking his head, Lu Qing seized the opportunity when the performing student's center of gravity changed when the crowd's cheers reached its climax. He drew in his qi and blood and channeled it into his left leg, causing it to swell and thicken. Lu Qing stomped on the ground and flipped forward. Suddenly the arena shook and trembled. The tall white man standing in front of Zhu Hong lost his balance and fell, leaning towards Dojo Master Zhu like Mount Tai. Zhu Hong's expression changed. He pushed his feet inward, twisted his knees, swung his hips, and braced his arms to withstand the fall. However, the students behind him were like falling dominoes, stacking on top of each other. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. His center of gravity wobbled and his body leaned backwards. He staggered a few steps back and sat on the ground. Thump, thump. The 6 students all fell to the ground in a heap, staring at Zhu Hong with their eyes wide open. The surrounding cheers came to an abrupt end. Everyone looked at each other with a blank expression on their faces. What was going on? This is probably what they call a performance accident. Lu Qing chuckled mischievously. While the crowd was panicking, confused, and focused on the interior of the venue, he picked up his phone, took a picture, and retreated. He squeezed out of the human wall, straightened his clothes, and slowly walked away. After a few seconds, everyone came back to their senses. The 2 Caucasian men in the crowd looked at each other in confusion. George, let's go back to class. The brown-haired young man with a few freckles on his face glanced at Zhu Hong, who hurriedly stood up and said disappointedly. The shaking of the field and the fall of the students were very close together. In hindsight, it was easy to confuse the cause and effect and think that the latter was the cause of the former. The blond youth with thick arms and a clear devil tattoo sighed and answered, "That's right. Sai, even in Cathay there aren't many people as powerful as Peng Helu. Not to mention those who were willing to come to a foreign land." After leaving the Dragon Punch dojo, Lu Qing strolled around the nearby streets aimlessly. He shared the incident with Yanjika along with the picture. Poor dojo master Zhu. He must be drawing circles and asking who I offended. He will most likely suspect that it's an old enemy or a competitor from the dojo. He definitely won't think that it's some guy who has nothing better to do, said Yanjika. It's hard to say if he'll realize that someone is messing with him. Maybe he'll think that it's a performance accident. Lu Qing put quotation marks around the word, performance. I'm thinking. If that so-and-so knew that someone's true motive was to prevent trouble before it happened, and that it wasn't too far away, what kind of expression would he have? At that moment, the conversation between Lu Qing and Joseph appeared in Yanjika's mind. This time, Lu Qing didn't say that he had nothing better to do. Instead, he answered frankly, "For my wife's safety, I have to get rid of the hidden danger in advance." What kind of reaction would Joseph have then? If it were me, I'd definitely ask, "Who's your wife?" and get a weird answer of, "You don't know her." After a series of weird conversations like, "Do I have anything to do with her?" and "I don't think so," he'd feel extreme absurdity and endless anger. It should be the expression of someone who died with their eyes wide open. "Sinister smile expression," replied Lu Qing. Yanjika forced herself to turn her attention back to the classroom. "Rest in peace, Mr. Joseph. It's my fault for coming to Connecticut to study." After this conversation, Lu Qing thought of his Connecticut criminal cleanup plan again. Hence, he leisurely started to filter out possible targets. Nightmare was stronger than Joseph. He hadn't locked onto a suspect of any value. He couldn't even find out who he was, let alone pay him a visit. Furthermore, his crime area was only in the slums, so he could effectively avoid him. The others were either people that Aunt Du could handle, or they wouldn't involve Ku at all. There were only two that could pose a threat. One was Mizuski of Polish descent. His skills were only passable. He was the boss of a mafia in Connecticut. He was involved in arms smuggling and large-scale drug trafficking. He worshipped spirit cultivation, and liked to use drugs to control girls, lure the innocent, and hold wild parties. In some situations, strength couldn't prevent everything. Mizuski had been caught a few times, but he had taken precautions in advance. He had his capable subordinates take the blame and go to jail. He was still at large. One of them was called Pavel. He was a member of the church and a grandmaster of martial arts. Due to the fact that he had violated young children and young girls, his current whereabouts were unknown. There were rumors that he was hiding in the famous Holy Top Church in Connecticut. However, in the absence of evidence, no one dared to search for him, even superheroes. Thinking of this, Lu Qing turned on his phone and sent an email to an inconspicuous mailbox. He asked Smith to provide more information for his reference. If there was a good opportunity and there weren't any consequences, he could try. If not, he wouldn't think about it for now. The butcher incident was at the cusp of a storm. It was better to avoid it for a while. Smith opened the door and got out of the car. He stretched his limbs and walked to the cafe. Just then he received a notification. He took out his phone and logged into an email that didn't belong to him. He saw Lu Qing's email. After browsing through it, he covered his face with his hands. Is there an end to this? However, if this happened a few more times, everyone's attention would be diverted from the butcher case to the follow-up. That would completely bury the possibility of me being related to the Deliverman. But I can't do too much or I'll be exposed sooner or later. P.S. I'm stuck at the end of this chapter. I didn't finish it for a long time. Seeing that there wasn't enough time, I wrote down the parts one thought of. That's why the word count is lower. I can't postpone it to tonight. Chapter 508. In China's Dragon Punch Dojo, a gloomy Zhu Hong and a few of his disciples were checking the surveillance cameras, looking for clues. After confirming that there wasn't an earthquake, they were wary of any possible mistakes. Master, this guy is very suspicious. He left after taking a picture. Shouldn't he be enjoying the show? Said a disciple who shared the same roots as Zhu Hong, pointing at Lu Cheng's figure on the screen. Another disciple nodded in agreement. Also, he knows how to avoid the cameras and didn't show his face. We can't see what he looks like. However, we can ask the people in this dojo. Someone must have seen him before. After a moment of silence, Zhu Hong suddenly reached out and turned off the screen. He said in a hoarse voice, "He's an expert who can cause an earthquake with a stomp of his feet. An expert he couldn't face directly." He turned to look at his disciples and sighed. "We have to admit what we did. There's no need to make a big deal out of it. It won't be good for anyone. Anyway, it's only affecting this dojo for now. Be careful in other aspects. Don't make any more mistakes." "Yes, Master," the disciples answered listlessly. They understood that this matter had to be dealt with quietly. They just couldn't take it lying down and wanted to find out who was the culprit. Now that they had calmed down, those thoughts of overestimating themselves also faded away. After Lu Cheng enjoyed his afternoon tea, he opened his mailbox and saw Smith's reply. He said that Mizuki's fighting standard, even with the addition of his spirit cultivation, was only at the formidable level. He wasn't even at the outstanding level. However, because of this, he was very careful about his own safety and was very careful when he went out. He wasn't like Joseph, who was strong and fearless. He was careless, which made it easy for him to be ambushed. Mizuki belonged to the type that the entire Connecticut city knew that he was a mafia boss and the leader of villains, but there was no way to put him in jail. He knew this very well, so he was on guard everywhere and was very careful in everything he did. He did not want to be punished by a certain superhero one day. Most of the superheroes in the United States had their own ideas. They mainly focused on stopping crime and capturing criminals. They would not seriously violate the law and directly kill their targets. However, there were always exceptions in the world. There were also many superheroes who did not believe in the current system. For example, the danger level judge. His slogan was justice. For this reason, Mizuki not only cultivated a group of capable subordinates, but also hired professional security company personnel with high salaries. He also won over 2 outstanding spirit cultivators. Supplemented by other investments, his defense could be said to be impregnable. Over the years, it wasn't that there hadn't been superheroes who had ideas about him, but they had all returned in defeat. Looks like the formidable level here is the level of those who have just entered the dance stage. Lu Cheng made a judgment based on Smith's description and recalled the information. According to Smith, with his strength, if he was willing to pay the price and ignore everything, there was still hope for him to kill Mizuki under heavy protection. However, if he did that, there would be no way to clean up the mess. He would leave behind many loose ends which would be very troublesome. Therefore, he advised him to wait patiently and not be impatient. Once there was an opportunity, he should be notified immediately. Lu Cheng was always an obedient person. He shook his head and threw the matter of Mizuki to the back of his mind. He started reading about Bishop Pavel. Smith was sure that Pavel was hiding in the Holy Top Church. However, that was the center of Catholicism in Connecticut. With Archbishop Kontsev in charge, it was impossible to sneak in. Kontsev, a formidable mighty one, was equivalent to a physical invulnerability expert. Connecticut was one of the few big cities in the United States. It was the financial center, so there was no shortage of physical invulnerability experts. Other than Kontsev, there was also Grand Elder Stephen of the Jaruga sect, Grand Teacher Cisco of Kagri, a spirit cultivator society that had split off from the Jaruga sect. There were also 3 participants in the top professional competitions. There was also a formidable one in the government security system. However, the information was confidential and rarely circulated. Due to various reasons, Smith felt that the time wasn't ripe to challenge Pavel. He believed that Pavel wouldn't be able to bear the loneliness and would leave the holy top church sooner or later. Then he would be monitored. A person who had been distorting his desires for years could restrain himself for a short period of time, but not for long. All right. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He reformatted the letters in his mailbox and exited the app. He stopped thinking about Mizuski and Pavel and started searching for terms like spirit cultivator and psychic in high spirits. Yenjika only had one class in the afternoon, followed by a group discussion. Lu Qing didn't have to wait long before he received the news of the rendezvous. He hurried over and returned home with the girl. Just as they got out of the car and were about to enter the house, they heard a knocking sound coming from their neighbor's house. Looking over, they saw a middle-aged man with a light yellow beard mowing the lawn with a push weeder. Seeing the couple looking over, he waved and greeted them with a warm smile. Looking back at the messy and long lawn, Yenjika blushed and said, "I forgot to hire someone to mow the lawn for the past 2 weeks." Seeing that it was still early, Lu Qing got an idea and said eagerly, "Why don't I do it?" This was the responsibility of the main labor force in the family. "Sure, I remember there are weeders in the garage." Yenjika was also excited. It felt like a child playing house. Hitting it off, the two entered the garage and found a stack of machines. Then they took out their phones at the same time, lowered their heads and started typing away. After a few seconds, Yenjika stole a glance at Lu Qing and asked curiously, "Qing, what are you looking at?" "I'm searching for tips on weeding in America, guide to lawn repair." Lu Qing showed the screen. "What a coincidence, me too." Yenjika's lips curved into a professional smile. After that, the two burst out laughing. They felt that they were indeed new teenagers who grew up in the age of the internet. Nowadays, it's a habit to ask the internet before doing anything. After some discussion, Lu Qing moved the weeder out of the garage. As he was preparing, he saw Yenjika hiding in the shadows with empty hands. "What are you going to do?" Lu Qing chuckled. Yenjika waved her fist solemnly and said, "I'm going to cheer you on." "You might as well cheer 666. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He retracted his gaze and began to push the weeder to clean the plants that were growing recklessly. At first he was still a little unfamiliar with it, but after a while he could hear the force of the weeder. Gradually, it became easier and more experienced to use it. He mowed the lawn neatly. During this process, he exchanged glances with the uncle next door and nodded at him from time to time. They really felt like neighbors. Yenjika, who was in the shade, watched him work with her dimples. Her eyes were gentle. Before 4:30, Lu Qing finished the lawn. Yenjika, who had shouted "good luck" to show that she wasn't just a spectator, came over and helped with the follow-up. After busying himself for a while, Lu Qing glanced at his little fairy who had a strand of grass stuck to her face at some point in time. "Why don't we cook tonight? I've already studied the recipe seriously." As he spoke, he reached out and pinched the weed, returning her beautiful face to her fair and clean face. "But I haven't seen the recipe yet." Yenjika blinked. She wanted to try but was also a little nervous. "What are you afraid of? I'll teach you." Lu Qing waved his hand generously and continued, "Besides, you're so smart. It'll be the same if you read it live." "That makes sense." Yenjika was full of confidence in her own intelligence. After informing Aunt Du, the girl took out an apron and put it on Lu Qing before putting it on herself. "What should we do first?" she asked with sparkling eyes. "Stir-fried beef." Lu Qing flipped to the corresponding page of the recipe and placed it on the counter. "Okay." Yenjika opened the fridge and picked up a piece of beef. After looking at it for a while, she said, "This is meat. Empress Dowager said it's most suitable for roasting and frying." "The recipe says tenderloin." Lu Qing tilted his head and glanced at it. After a while, the girl found the tenderloin and watched a certain superpower user defrosting the ice with his hands. Lifting the kitchen utensils, Lu Qing controlled his body. The knife moved quickly, leaving after images. After a while, the tenderloin was reduced to strips of meat. "My knife skills aren't bad, right?" Lu Qing boasted proudly. "Although I've never practiced knife skills, my senior sister is known as the Black and White Divine Knife." "Awesome." Yenjika praised. She took out her favorite kitchen weighing tool and meticulously calculated how many grams of sweet potato starch, how much water, and how much oil were needed according to the recipe. She concentrated on mixing them with the shredded beef to make it more tender and smooth. Lu Qing started cutting onions at the side. Frost covered the onions and buried the feeling that rushed into his eyes. As he cut, he turned his head and looked at Yenjika, who seemed to be doing some important experiment. Looking at her plain white apron, he suddenly felt that Yenjika was also cute like this. Retracting his gaze, Lu Qing saw the same apron he was wearing. He suddenly had a strange feeling and couldn't help but laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Yenjika turned her head with a confused look. "An hour or two ago I was thinking about how to get rid of powerful criminals like Mizuki and Pavel. But now I'm busy cleaning the lawn, cutting vegetables and cooking." Lu Qing described his feelings as he straightened the apron on him. While he was researching the lawn mower, he had already talked to his fairy about Mizuki and Pavel. Yenjika pondered for a few seconds before nodding solemnly. "This is probably called being able to make a living in the hall and enter the kitchen." As she finished speaking, a light smile appeared on her face. In the evening, at a small gathering, Huang Shiwen, whose face was still a little pale, sat on the sofa in the corner with a glass of champagne in her hand. "Hey, are you in a bad mood?" A young man with dyed white hair walked over and asked with a smile. He was of mixed blood and had a pair of deep, dark eyes that were extremely charming. "Can you tell?" Huang Shiwen didn't know this man and replied politely. The white-haired young man laughed softly and said, "You are jealous of someone and afraid of someone. Am I right?" "How did you know?" Huang Shiwen blurted out in surprise, full of shock. "Because I'm communicating directly with your heart." The white-haired young man raised his glass and took a sip. He said enigmatically, "Do you need my help to deal with them?" "No, no need." Huang Shiwen shook her head in denial, shocked and scared. "Yenjika probably didn't say anything bad about me, and Lu Qing didn't have any intention of dealing with me. There's no need to create more trouble? Okay." The white-haired young man didn't say anything else and left with a smile. "Laura, what were you guys talking about just now?" The host of the party, Jennifer, came over. "Nothing." Huang Shiwen didn't want to talk about it anymore. Jennifer smiled and said, "He's a powerful spirit cultivator. You can ask him for help if you're in trouble." "Not at the moment." Huang Shiwen denied again. Jennifer nodded and said, "All right. Then let's enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Let go of the restraints of life, let go of the outer layer of flesh, and enjoy the party to our heart's content." When it was close to the weekend, Lu Qing suddenly received an email from Smith. "Mizuki will be out for a rave party. There might be a chance." Chapter 509. At the entrance of a villa with a fountain and statues in front of it, Mizuki said excitedly to the spirit cultivation instructor beside him, "House, I feel great this time. I'm about to come into contact with the world of pure spirit." He was less than 40 years old, tall, with deep eye sockets and a straight nose. His eyes were light green and the contours of his face were soft. He was a good-looking man and he was born with a childlike temperament. He didn't look like a gang leader who committed murder, arson, smuggling, drug trafficking and forced women into prostitution. The spirit cultivation instructor was a mixed-blood youth in his 20s. His hair was dyed white and his eyes were light brown. They were dark and deep, as if they were connected to another mysterious and strange world. Even when standing next to Mizuki, who was much older than him, he did not look young and inexperienced. Instead, he looked more mysterious. "Very good. Try to maintain this feeling. Repeat the meditation tonight. I believe we can become the same kind of people," House replied with a smile. His body exuded a sense of relaxation, relief, and peace. The other spirit cultivator was in his 40s. His eyes were filled with madness, as if he was still reminiscing about the carnival just now and the feeling of being refreshed after breaking free from restraints. He and House stood on either side of Mizuki. Surrounded by professional bodyguards and gang gunmen, they boarded a bulletproof car. In a room on the first floor of the villa, Jennifer, whose cheeks were still flushed, swirled her wine glass. Her eyes were bright as she looked at Huang Shiwen, who was completely relaxed. "How do you feel?" "I feel light, as if my body is weightless. My depression and pain have been vented by yelling and screaming." "I'm very, very happy," Huang Shiwen replied with a slightly dazed look in her eyes. Although her body was tired, her spirit was satisfied. However, it was her first time attending a party like this. Soon she was worried. "Senior Jennifer, will this be addictive?" "You don't have to worry. This is the secret medicine of a certain spiritual cultivation society. It does contain traces of marijuana, but as you know, you can also search for it. It's even less addictive than cigarettes. Look at me, do I show any signs of addiction?" Jennifer explained in a gentle voice, guiding him patiently. "Yes, Senior, you look very healthy and energetic," Huang Shiwen said with half certainty and half envy. His senior sister easily dealt with the classes and the party, unlike him who was full of pressure. Jennifer smiled and said, "Laura, do you know that there was a party on the second floor just now?" "I know." Huang Shiwen had been curious about this for a long time, but without an invitation she couldn't pass through the burly man at the stairs. "It's a secret party held by the Spirit Cultivators Society. It helps you release your stress and break free from the shackles of the external world and your body. You can truly see your unique self and see your own gem-like soul. Not only will it help you relax and achieve a wonderful peace, it will also allow you to experience extreme happiness. From there, you can break out of your prison and gain the opportunity to communicate with the pure spiritual world," Jennifer described in a dreamy tone. Seeing that Huang Shiwen was still holding back, she changed her words. "This is the most popular party in the upper class. There are senators, lawyers, professors, and CEOs of various companies. The spirit cultivator you met earlier is their mentor. He's very powerful, much more powerful than a superpower user." Huang Shiwen's heart skipped a beat when she heard the words, upper-class society, but she still had some doubts about it, so she didn't dare to ask more. At the entrance of the villa, after Mizuki and the two spirit cultivators boarded the bulletproof sedan, the professional bodyguards didn't immediately leave to board the black car behind. Instead they stood guard by the 4 doors. As the bulletproof sedan started moving slowly, they held onto the door and ran in small steps, maintaining their previous positions. Only when the bulletproof sedan started moving did they retract their arms, turn around, and enter the second car that was moving forward but had its door open. The whole process was very professional. At this moment, a figure jumped out from the shadows outside the villa. He wore a baseball cap that was pressed very low on his head, and a pair of black-rimmed glasses rested on the bridge of his nose, covering half of his face. The exposed part of his face was sparkling and the color was chaotic. His muscles were tight and he was unusually thin. In the blink of an eye, Lu Qing had reached the side of the bulletproof car as if he had shrunk the distance between them. He gathered his qi and blood and exploded them, expanding his right arm. He opened his palm and pressed it hard on the trunk of the car amid the flames. Screech, screech, screech. An ear-piercing screech of friction sounded instantly. The rear wheels of the bulletproof sedan were pressed to the ground. They spun wildly at first, then slowed down rapidly. Golden sparks flew everywhere. Both of Lu Cheng's legs were pressed inward, and his muscles were exaggerated. His entire body strength was twisted into one. Cracks appeared all around him and spread outwards. He pressed the button to stop the car that had already started moving. At this sudden change, the car behind instinctively braked, shaking the bodyguards and preventing them from reaching out their large-caliber pistols from the window. House, who was in the car in front, had already reacted. Dark flames flashed in his eyes, and a distorted shadow appeared in front of him. At this moment, Lu Qing didn't make any unnecessary movements. He shook his left arm and stretched it out. His 5 fingers expanded, and his small muscles and veins bulged. He grabbed the door of the car's fuel tank with dark red flames in between. With the sound of metal breaking, the small door was forcefully pulled open. Lu Qing took advantage of the momentum and stepped back, avoiding the shadow that came through the door and the bodyguard's bullets. They steadied themselves, extended their guns from the window, and completed a round of rapid fire. Lu Qing retreated again and again. During this process he suddenly swung his right arm forward and shot out a highly condensed and heavy fireball. It accurately ignited the shadow and drilled into the fuel tank. No! Witnessing this scene, Mizuki and the leader of the bodyguards let out earth-shattering screams. Boom! A huge explosion immediately sounded, swallowing all other sounds. A terrifying fireball rose from the inside of the bulletproof car and rolled out, tearing apart the steel plates, shattering the glass and burning fiercely red. It was magnificent to the extreme but also terrifying to the extreme. The bodyguards in the car behind were momentarily stunned. Resisting the fear of a second explosion, they quickly got out of the car and split into 2 groups. One group was to chase and shoot in Lu Cheng's direction, while the other group was to try and rescue him. At this moment, the flames that completely covered the car in front suddenly split apart. A chilly wind blew in all directions and dyed the car green. In the car that was left with only the skeleton, Spirit Cultivator House's eyes glowed with darkness. His clothes were tattered and his face was pale. He kicked open the broken car door and walked out. Shadows wrapped around his left arm, and his right hand pulled Mizuki. This mafia tycoon was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, and his body was covered in terrifying burn marks. Although his injuries weren't fatal, they were quite serious and he almost fainted on the spot. As for the other spirit cultivator and his right-hand man, even though they were stronger, they were also in a bad state and had almost lost their ability to fight. Lu Qing had retreated to the back of the flower bed. As the bodyguards got out of the car and House extinguished the fire, he reached into his pocket with his left hand, took out a coin and flicked it out. Clang. The coin was distorted, creating a streak of reddish-gold sparks that shot towards Mizuki like lightning. House cursed under his breath and threw Mizuki at his feet. He extended his palms forward, creating more shadows to meet the bomb. Bam! The coin exploded into pieces. After piercing through the layers of shadows, its power finally faded. The bodyguards covered Lu Cheng's position with fire, forcing him to retreat again and leave the scene. At this moment, a bullet was fired from a silencer behind the crowd. It silently entered Mizuki's head, causing his eyes to widen abruptly. His pupils protruded and he lost control of his bladder. He died with a grievance. On the huge stone sculpture in the fountain, the shadow that had been lurking for a long time threw out a few thin threads that stuck to the corner of the villa. With a whoosh, it disappeared. Seeing this, Lu Qing quickly retreated. He didn't want to stay any longer. After a few ups and downs, he had left the crowd far behind. After sprinting for a while, he suddenly stopped. The ice mirror of mind reflected a shadow that was following him. It was like a face and it vaguely resembled House's. For an inhuman with a mutated body, it was easy to use superpowers within a small area. However, beyond a certain distance, there was no way to control it. Spirit cultivators, on the other hand, didn't seem to be restricted. Lu Qing didn't bat an eyelid. In his mind, he sketched out the ancient army character, turned its murderous aura into a spike, and shot it at the shadow. This was something he could only do after his breakthrough in the ice mirror. It was also a simplified version of the 9 words formula, and similarly, it was a reduction in power in exchange for faster usage. With a poof, the spike hit the shadow and obliterated it like a nemesis. Ah! At the entrance of the villa, House suddenly let out a scream. Clutching his head, he fell to the ground in pain. His body twitched and it was a terrifying sight. The bodyguards looked at each other for a few seconds. Just as they were about to start rescuing him, the flames in the car flared up again, causing a second explosion. Boom! The loud explosion scared the men and women in the villa. Some called the police while others tried to peek outside. Don't be afraid. With Mr. House around, it won't be a problem. Jennifer comforted Huang Shiwen. There's also Mr. Zaire. He's a powerful figure with a reputation. Zaire was Mizuki's alias. Is Mr. House very powerful? Huang Shiwen asked in trepidation. Very powerful. He's a very, very powerful spirit cultivator, Jennifer confirmed. After waiting for a few minutes, the explosions and gunshots outside had stopped. They cautiously looked out the window and saw a luxury car reduced to a skeleton. Mizuki and House were moved to the side, motionless. The villa was completely silent, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Huang Shiwen shook her head, feeling that this would be a nightmare she would never be able to get rid of. 2 blocks away, Lu Qing met up with Smith. He changed out of his takeout clothes and sneakers and turned them into ashes. Hearing the cracking sounds from Lu Cheng's bones, seeing him grow bigger and taller, bulging his facial muscles and becoming more defined, Smith couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh, how magical!" "A little trick," Lu Qing replied with a smile. After encountering gods in the void, his control over his body was enough to achieve bone shrinkage. Smith started the car and drove off into the distance. After a moment of silence, he said with trepidation, "I'm crazy. I've been a secret agent for 5 years, and I've never participated in any dangerous missions. Neither have I done anything that a superhero should do. This is the first time I've experienced it. A bullet was fired and a life was lost. Mizuki and the spirit cultivator beside him deserve to die, but under the circumstances where they haven't been convicted, I feel like I'm committing a crime." Lu Qing glanced at Smith, the corner of his mouth twitching. Smith calmed down. "I didn't know you were so talkative." Understood, understood. Calm down, calm down. Smith took a deep breath, regaining his professionalism as an agent. Lu Qing pondered for a few seconds before saying, "Do you think Mizuki doesn't deserve to die? If there was strong evidence to convict him, others would have done it long ago. If there wasn't, even if they caught him, he could still find someone to take the blame and leave the court easily." "I know." Smith tilted his head and looked at Lu Qing. "I just feel like I'm no longer Spider-Man. I need to find a concept that suits me." "Lu, why are you so calm? Don't you feel conflicted? Isn't that obvious? I'm not the one who killed him in the end. Lu Qing thought for a moment, then answered seriously, maybe it's because my legal awareness is weak. Smith was at a loss. He didn't say anything else. After taking a detour, he returned the gun to the subordinate of Mizuki's enemy. Finally, he sent Lu Qing to the north of Connecticut. After entering the house, Lu Qing looked at Yenjika, who was still in her pajamas, waiting in the living room. He smiled and said, "Done? So easy. Details?" Yenjika heaved a sigh of relief, her eyes shining brightly. Lu Qing was about to describe when he heard his stomach rumbling. He smiled sheepishly and said, "I'll make something to eat first. I'm starving after this." "I'll make it." Yenjika raised her arm eagerly. "What do you want to eat? Do you have noodles?" Lu Qing smiled casually. "There's flour. You can make your own noodles." Yenjika jogged into the kitchen and called out to Lu Qing. She pointed at the flour and said, "I've made it. You need it. Aren't you going to make it?" Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Yenjika pursed her lips and said innocently, "You have more strength in your hands." "All right." Lu Qing smiled and put on his apron. When Huang Shiwen and the rest were questioned by the police, he brought a bowl of noodles into the dining room. He watched as Yenjika poured the leftovers that he had heated up earlier into the bowl as toppings. Then she started eating happily. Occasionally he would tell the girl about what had happened. What a wonderful night. Chapter 5:10. After finishing his noodles and soup, Lu Qing put down his bowl and chopsticks. He flipped a coin in his left hand and started complaining about Smith in a low voice. "That spider is really something. I just casually mentioned it at the start because I thought it would be too risky to go on my own. But he agreed right away and even tried to perfect the plan in high spirits. I thought he was indeed the head of the Secret Service. His mental fortitude was off the charts and he had seen all kinds of storms. Who knew he would become as listless as a little lamb and kept nagging me that this was against his ideals and that he didn't deserve to be Spider-Man anymore. Why didn't he reject it earlier?" Yenjika rested her chin on one hand and listened quietly. Her black, jewel-like eyes looked at Lu Qing from head to toe and then fell on his left hand, which was flipping the coins quickly. After a moment of silence, she said in an uncertain tone, "Qing, you're actually not very calm either, right?" Huh. Lu Qing was stunned and instinctively wanted to deny it. But when he glanced at the flipping coin, it was as if he saw his own heart in the same state. It looked calm and peaceful with only a slight ripple. But in fact, it was tense and surging in the depths. "Yeah, after visiting Joseph, I couldn't help but abuse the mineral water bottle. It turned cold and then hot, then cold and then hot again. I only managed to calm down when I saw Ku. As a law-abiding student for more than 10 or 20 years, he was not like what he had said to Smith just now, that he had a weak awareness of the law and was a natural outlaw. What he longed for was never a life of fear and fear. Although he had experienced killing the ninth pin of the dark sect and improved his adaptability at the edge of life and death, and tempered his state of mind, he was either involved or not involved. Plus, he had his sect to deal with the aftermath, so he didn't have to worry. It was fundamentally different from ambushing the butcher in a foreign country or eliminating Mizuki. In the end, I'm just a fledgling in this aspect. And I don't really like doing things like this." Lu Qing was stared at by the girl who seemed to be able to see through his soul. His thoughts were in turmoil and finally turned into a sigh. "Could come here. Let me give you a hug." "Okay." Yenjika left her seat and walked to Lu Qing. She allowed him to stand up and open his arms to hug her tightly. The familiar scent wafted into his nose and lingered in his mind. Her beautiful body was slender and warm. Their breaths seemed to resonate. Lu Qing's heart slowly calmed down. He watched as the feelings of anxiety, uneasiness, and tension slowly returned to the lake. There was no more undercurrent. During this process, Yenjika patted his back clumsily and awkwardly, just like how he gently stroked the girl's hair. After getting rid of the butcher and Mizuki, the other criminals in Connecticut will either not involve you or fall within the range that Aunt Du can handle. There's only Pavel left. He's hiding in the Holy Top Church and won't dare to sneak out for a few months. Moreover, his main targets are the underage children. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else for me to do. I can relax and enjoy life." Lu Qing's voice was low. Yenjika's comforting actions gradually became more familiar and smooth. She buried her head in Lu Qing's shoulder and answered in a low voice, "That's good, that's good." After hugging for a long time, the two of them separated. Lu Qing picked up the bowl and chopsticks and smiled, his body and mind relaxed. Hello, your dishwasher is online. You make it sound like I'm eating? Yenjika looked at Lu Cheng in disdain. She chuckled and teased, when someone came back he was so relaxed. He acted as though he had just gone out to buy groceries and that making noodles when he was hungry was more important than superhero matters. In the end it was all an act. At this point she turned and smiled. She muttered to herself in a low voice, "Then I'm relieved." After washing the dishes, the couple took separate showers and lay side by side on the bed. With their backs against the pillows, they covered themselves with a thin blanket and scrolled through their phones. Hey, our overseas students group chat is saying that Senior Jennifer is involved in Mizuki's case. Yenjika's crossed legs swayed as she turned her body to the side. There's news already? Lu Cheng hadn't scrolled through the news yet. As for the forums of foreigners and other places, he was still confused and didn't look into it. A classmate's uncle migrated to Connecticut a long time ago to do business. His cousin happened to be working at the police station, Yenjika explained. She moved the phone and herself closer to Lu Cheng to read the follow-up. According to the classmate's description, Jennifer, an active figure at Connecticut University, had been controlled by Mizuki since a long time ago to help him find girls of good quality. The usual method was to invite them to parties, and after they had played together a few times and got familiar with each other, he would lure them to take this secret drug, in order to seek higher levels of enjoyment. Then he would slowly increase the dosage until it became an addiction. Finally, he would introduce them to rave parties, where they would indulge their body and mind and fall into depravity. They would become a tool for spirit cultivators or a tool for Mizuki to rope in members of the upper class. When they got bored and didn't have the talent in this area, they would be thrown to the bottom of the class and controlled to make money. In the process, the girls who were seduced would, in turn, become like Jennifer, pulling in more unsuspecting girls, causing the number of victims to snowball. However, not everyone would succumb. It should be said that most of the girls participated a few times, but after realizing that something was wrong, they would rationally refuse and not come again. Of course, there were also poor victims who were forcibly drugged. How can this be? Yenjika was dumbfounded. She was so angry that her voice trembled a little. Unlike the girls Joseph killed, she didn't know and had no relationship with them. This time, many of the victims involved in this case were students from Connecticut University. Yenjika didn't discriminate against the atmosphere of parties in America. She just felt that it was a waste of time and could easily lead to scandals, so she wasn't willing to participate. Who knew that some parties were actually dangerous, like a venomous snake that looked colorful but was actually terrifying? Lu Cheng felt lucky and no longer had any doubts about his previous actions. What's the point of bullying girls? And it was easier to implicate Ku than he expected. It's good that Mizuki died. Those spirit cultivators are also detestable. He only regretted that he didn't have the chance to punish them. Yenjika complained for a while. She was actually a little traumatized by the parties. The police didn't reveal who was involved in the parties out of consideration for the victims. Cheng, you did a great job this time. After venting, the girl looked up at her husband with bright eyes. Out of habit, Lu Cheng wanted to flirt and ask what the reward was. However, he was still in a state of calmness after the excitement. When he saw Ku's serious expression and bright eyes, he immediately felt that everything had paid off. I like this reward. He chuckled softly. Huh. Yenjika was stunned. She didn't know what her Cheng had pulled on again. Since when did I reward him? After calming down, the girl browsed the news again. Finally, she found a few reports in a row. The Deliverman reappears. The infamous Mizuki was executed. The Deliverman is not a hero of order. Crazy party, deadly party? Yenjika's English reading ability was much better than Lu Cheng's. She browsed quickly and translated. According to the investigation at the scene, the Deliverman had the help of powerful companions. This may be the reason why they could kill Mizuki while the other heroes couldn't. The surveillance equipment at the scene was damaged and couldn't record the key parts. However, we were able to extract the footage and directly see the Deliverman. He is less than 1.7 meters tall and dressed like a typical delivery boy. He wore a baseball cap and very large black-rimmed glasses. His skin color was indistinguishable. He was the type with thin cheeks. He was good at making explosions. His hands were covered in flames, so no fingerprints were left. This basically matches the description in Cole's brief statement. Basically matches? Yenjika laughed and turned to look at Lu Cheng. Her Cheng was already 1.78 meters tall after his second puberty. He wasn't handsome, but he was a good young man with defined lines, full muscles, and a masculine face. If they are really the same, then I'll have a headache. Lu Qing laughed. He deeply felt that the bone-shrinking skill was very useful. After chatting for a while, Yan Zhika translated the comments under the news. The American public was roughly divided into two camps. A group of people believed that the Deliver Man was not a superhero but an evil person. If he could kill the infamous Mizuki today without any evidence, he could kill someone else tomorrow based on his own judgment. Perhaps he could kill someone else tomorrow based on his own judgment. This was a factor that caused social unrest. They wanted to catch the Deliver Man as soon as possible. The other camp believed that the American system was corrupt and hopeless. The judiciary had become a toy for the rich and powerful and could no longer uphold justice. At this time, it required a brave knight to judge and punish the bad guys. They claimed that the Deliver Man was their idol and a true knight. After translating the most popular comments, Yenjika chuckled and said, "I don't know about other things, but I'm sure those rebellious youths in America worship you. It doesn't feel right that everyone is wearing black-rimmed glasses to imitate me." Lu Qing's imagination ran wild. The couple talked and laughed for a long time until their biological clocks came and they both fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Yenjika woke up slowly. She wanted to turn over but found that her right hand was tightly gripped and she couldn't break free. She propped her head up and looked beside her. Although Lu Qing was sound asleep, his hand was firmly gripping hers and wouldn't let go. The gentleness and calmness in his eyes faded away and he became like a child. The next morning the couple woke up on time and started practicing. Because of the experience of mastering the other characters, Yenjika finally got a feel for the fighting formula after a few days of practice. This made her very happy and she even ate 5 more mouthfuls of breakfast. After they parted ways outside the campus, Lu Qing jogged to the Musashi martial arts gym. Along the way he saw many imitators wearing baseball caps and black-rimmed glasses. He could only twitch his mouth in response. In the following week, Lu Qing was well behaved because Pavel never left the Holy Top Church. He even didn't find an opportunity to challenge the Grandmaster of Martial Arts of the Jaruga sect as planned to avoid the limelight. In the blink of an eye, it was almost the end of the month. It was time for Lu Qing to return. In the lobby of Orion Airport, Smith heaved a long sigh of relief when he saw the reluctant couple through the surveillance camera. During this period of time, he had come to realize that he had deviated from the path of Spider-Man ever since he couldn't get a search warrant for Joseph. That was why he agreed to Lu's suggestion of working together to eliminate Mizuki. However, Lu was a dangerous person. If he stayed in Connecticut all the time, it was easy for him to cause trouble, which would exhaust him to deal with the aftermath. Phew, thank God he's finally leaving. Smith made a cross piously. Chapter 511. In front of the security checkpoint, Lu Qing was carrying a 20-inch trolley box, which was filled with the loot he got from shopping with Yenjika. There were new clothes for him from head to toe and gifts for Lu Jisheng, Qifeng and the others. It's so good to have a wife. She's so thoughtful. Lu Qing looked at Yenjika, who still looked tired. He tucked her hair behind her ear and said with a smile, "I'm going in. Go home quickly. Sleep early tonight. Get some sleep." Yenjika was touched at first, but as she listened she became embarrassed and angry. She opened her eyes, shook her right arm and punched Lu Qing in the abdomen. Her move was smooth but she didn't use any strength. "Who's to blame?" she whispered, gritting her teeth. She waved and turned around, pretending to be cool. She walked slowly to Du Yen, who was waiting for her at the elevator. Lu Qing held his stomach and stood up straight. He looked at his little fairy's back with a smile and muttered to himself, "Should I post a question on the forum? My wife is getting less and less shy and more violent. What should I do? Well, they'll definitely answer, 'Show off your love, get lost,' or 'I entered the wrong post, I'll get lost myself.'" While thinking, he watched Yenjika walk away. When she was about to enter the stairs, Yenjika finally couldn't hold back her emotions anymore. She turned around and looked at Lu Qing, who was still standing there, not moving at all. Their eyes met. She couldn't help but curse under her breath, "Idiot," because they wouldn't be apart for too long this time, as they would come again next month, and because they already had experience, the two of them weren't as reluctant to part as before. After looking at each other for more than 10 seconds, they waved again, entered the elevator and went through the security check. They skillfully switched to online dating mode. Lu Qing's flight was smooth. The flight took off on time, and there was no bad news in the weather forecast. Smith resisted the urge to wave his fist and celebrate. He rearranged the surveillance reports during this period, threw out a spider thread, and rushed into the director's office. It was as if he was running to freedom. Thank God, amen. In a spacious and clean hospital with few patients, a brown-haired middle-aged man with a stiff face and missing an arm looked through the window at the unconscious house in the intensive care unit. He said to the person beside him, "He's close to brain death." "I know," the black-robed man with green eyes answered calmly. It was hard to tell how old he was. His appearance was ordinary, but he had the temperament of a scholar. There was also an illusory sense of mystery that did not belong to the real world, making people admire him and willing to listen to his every word. "Lucas, I have a suggestion. Let me take him away. You should know that we have the artificial weapons project that will allow House to live in another way," the one-armed man said solemnly. Lucas, who looked like a mysterious scholar, was silent for a moment before he nodded indiscernibly. "I have no objections." The one-armed man heaved a sigh of relief and asked, "Haven't you found any useful clues about the Deliverman?" "No psychic is not omnipotent. In the absence of a direction, even a great teacher can't do anything," Lucas replied slowly, "but as long as he appears a few more times, we will definitely be able to catch him. Wherever he goes, there will be traces left behind. The only difference is how many traces there are. Once we accumulate enough traces, things will be simple." "May God bless you," the one-armed man said out of habit. But as soon as he finished speaking, he felt that it was inappropriate. God would not bless this group of evil spirit cultivators. It was more likely that he would send down holy light to purify them. Lucas had obviously thought of this as well. He smiled mockingly, took one last look at House in the ICU and turned to leave. "Lucas, there's one more thing. You have to complete the dissection as soon as possible and throw out a few people to calm the public opinion." The one-armed man raised his voice and reminded him. "We're doing it now." Lucas turned around and smiled. "Gore, when this is over, I'll invite you to my private island for a vacation." "My pleasure." The one-armed man imagined the scene on the island and felt a burning sensation in his lower abdomen. When Lu Qing flew to Songqing, it was the eve of the 11th. The members of the martial arts club would have a 3-day holiday. He planned to go back to Xioshan on the 2nd of October to help his parents move and send gifts to each of them. After half a year of drying the new house, they could finally move in. As soon as he entered the dormitory, Lu Qing saw Zhao Chong, Zhang Jingye, and Qiu Zhigao returning from self-study. "Hey, you're early." "Hey, you're back." Both parties greeted each other in surprise. At this time, Zhao Chong smiled a little embarrassedly. "Qing, let's have dinner together tonight." "It's my treat." "Your treat? What?" Lu Qing sized up the head of the dormitory, Comrade Chong. He wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses and combed his hair neatly. Although he looked old, he had a sense of maturity. "As expected of a scholar? Qing, you've been living a simple life. You don't even know the Han dynasty, let alone the Wei and Jin dynasties." Kai Zongming came over from the dormitory next door and dropped a line. After all, he was admitted to Songqing University with his own ability. "What's going on?" Lu Qing was curious. Qiu Zhigao explained enviously, "Chang has a girlfriend. He has to treat." "Girlfriend? The one from Songqing Normal University?" Lu Qing asked. "That was Zhao Chang's high school classmate." "Yes." Zhao Chang nodded happily and shyly. "Didn't you say that there was an elder who taught you to study more when you're young and not to waste time on love?" Lu Qing teased him with amusement. "People still have to consider the course of history in this life." Zhao Chang sighed with satisfaction. "Speak human language." Lu Qing interrupted his explanation. Zhao Chang scratched his head helplessly. "I just can't help it. I like her. What can I do?" "I think you're pretty good at taking action." Lu Qing praised from the bottom of his heart. "It's okay. It's mainly because she likes me too." Zhao Chang beamed with joy. Classmate Little Ming said disdainfully, "They talk every day. You go to my school and I go to yours on weekends. They'll either be lovers or enemies." "Friendship between classmates? Were you kidding? Didn't I say before that Chang will be B?" He made a gesture of holding his hand in the palm of his hand. Zhao Chang could only smile awkwardly. After a burst of laughter, Lu Qing asked casually, "Where are we going for dinner tonight?" "Let's go to Songqing Normal University. They're on the old campus. There's a street full of delicious food next to them," Zhao Chang suggested. Songqing Normal University was originally called Songqing Normal University. Later, because of a dog called Chow Chow, people automatically changed it. The old campus of Songqing Normal University is a bit far. Kai Zhongming said hesitantly. Hey Casanova, that's not like you. Lu Qing was stunned and joked. Why not? Kai Zhongming glanced at his best friend. If it were you in the past, you would definitely say that Songqing Normal University is a good place. There are so many beautiful women. As a married man, although you won't fool around, you can feast your eyes and be happy. How could you say it's far away? Lu Qing mocked talker without holding back. Kai Zhongming was stunned for a moment, then sighed deeply. Things are different now. Look, I have special training in the morning and homework in the afternoon and at night. I'm not like you who have the protection of the academy and school, so I'm not afraid of exams. The rest of my time is only enough to chat with my Fang Yuan. I have to make use of every opportunity to play games. How can I be in the mood to look at beautiful women? My current state is the standard of a dead heart, dumbfounded. I'm happy to hear you say that. Lu Qing patted little Ming's shoulder. Kai Zhongming curled his lips and said, I was going to advise you not to live like a monk when your girlfriend isn't around. How good would it be to be a little more sunny? But now I understand that it's so *king tiring. How can I be in the mood and energy? After a short rest, the five of them set off. On the way they talked about how they started. Zhao Chang was a natural success, and both of them had a good impression of each other at about the same time. Zhang Jingye was the one who chased after girls. During that time he was often invited by Wu Qian to go on a trip. As for the Casanova, time revealed a person's heart. After understanding his feelings, it didn't take much effort for him to be together with Fang Yuan. It seems that I'm the only one who really got her. Lu Qing sighed with emotion. As soon as he finished speaking, he remembered Yan Zhika who was far away in America. When they parted just now, he already missed her. 40 minutes later, they arrived at the north gate of Songqing Normal University and met Zhao Chang's old classmate and current girlfriend, Wang Shi. She was about 1.6 meters tall with fair skin. You know my roommate's Lu Qing. He has to wear glasses when he goes out now. Otherwise he'll block the traffic. Zhao Chang introduced his roommates to his girlfriend. Hello, there are 2 girls in our dorm who are your fans. Wang Shi greeted politely. I can only say thank you. Lu Qing replied with a smile. Kai Zhongming, I've told you before, talker. The guy who only has one mouth left. Zhang Jingye, model worker, and old Qiu, the only single dog left in our small dormitory. You have to introduce them to him. Zhao Chang proudly said one by one. While chatting casually, they entered the food street near the north gate and found a famous barbecue restaurant. While waiting, Lu Qing talked about the local customs of America. Everyone listened with great interest. They were interested in the social phenomenon of superheroes. At this moment his phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. Who is it? Lu Qing suspected that it was a scam or a sales call, but he still chose to answer in case he missed something important. As soon as the call connected, a magnetic voice came from the other side. Lu Qing? Yes, you are? Lu Qing asked in confusion. The other side didn't hesitate and answered naturally, I'm Qin Chitao. Chapter 512. Lu Qing's first reaction when he heard the other party's name was Qin Chitao. What AF * King Liar. His mind was already filled with jokes such as, I'm Dragon King Qin Chitao. I'm severely injured and have lost all my martial arts. I'm stranded in a foreign land and don't dare to contact anyone I know for fear of being discovered by my enemies. I hope you can lend me $5,000 for travel expenses to help me return to the Longhu Club. When I'm back, I'll take you in as my disciple and teach you the unique skills of the fire sect, or give you half of my assets. As for knowing his name, damn it. Which high-class liar wouldn't buy big data? Resisting the urge to blurt out, I'm returning Chen Donglu, Lu Qing replied calmly, Senior, is there anything I can help you with? This voice sounded so *King familiar. It sounded like the Dragon King when he was being interviewed. Even the tone was similar. The tone on the other end of the phone remained unchanged. If you're not returning to the Wuxia Club next year, come to the Longhu Club. Not scammed? No one should know that I'm not returning to the Wuxia Club. Could it be the real Dragon King? Lu Qing was excited. Without thinking, he gave an affirmative answer. Okay. The Dragon King personally invited me? The other end of the phone paused for a moment. The magnetic voice didn't mention what had just happened. Instead it said calmly, the core of Emperor Yen force is weight, not combustion, and definitely not explosion. You have understood this point very well. However, you have yet to reach the external realm of heaven and earth. Blindly pursuing weight, is not in line with the actual condition of your body. It won't be long before you reach a bottleneck. You can try to do more at the inhuman stage and mix in the charm of combustion. Okay. Lu Qing listened with a dumbfounded face, replying from time to time. How did this turn into teaching over the phone? After a few minutes, the person who called himself Qin Chitao stopped and said slowly, "That's all." As soon as he finished speaking, the beeping sound was heard. Lu Qing held the phone and stood there in a daze for a long time, unable to come back to his senses. It really is the Dragon King. Who would be so free as to teach me Emperor Yen force? Haha, the Dragon King personally invited me. To personally invite me. As a qualified fan, Lu Qing was both excited and agitated. He couldn't wait to shout this through the loudspeaker. What's wrong, Qing? Who called? Zhao Chang asked in confusion because of his strange expression. It seemed to have come from some senior? Lu Qing was about to share with his roommates the fact that the Dragon King had personally invited him when he suddenly felt that it would be too showy and high profile. Hence, he smiled reservedly and said, "Nothing much. I was just discussing the professional competition with a senior." Oh, when the time comes, you should directly enter the top professional competition and fight with the Wuxia Club, right? Qiu Zhigao asked curiously. Not necessarily. Lu Qing replied with a smile. At the same time he picked up his phone and sent a firecracker emoji to Yanjika. The Dragon King called me. Yanjika had just woken up and replied, rubbing my sleepy eyes expression, "Is it really Dragon King? Am I still asleep?" Of course. Based on his understanding of Emperor Yen force, I can guarantee it. Lu Qing said with a fist-glowing expression. He's inviting you to the Longhu Club? Yanjika was so smart that she had already guessed it. Yes. Hands on hips expression, Lu Qing replied. After sending this, he calmed down and replied, scratching head expression, I seem to have agreed directly. I haven't discussed with you and haven't asked my master. This should be the so-called evil disciple? The excited Lu Qing is so cute. Yanjika sent a rubbing head expression. You know my opinion. Of course I agreed. Lu Qing replied, snickering expression. Actually, I was quite afraid that I would encounter a difficult problem. If the Dragon King invited me on one hand and our grandpa asked me to go to the Shushan study as a guest elder, what should I do? What would you do? Rolling eyes expression, Yanjika replied. Of course I would follow my wife. Lu Qing replied without hesitation. Yanjika replied, covering mouth expression. Actually, the Shushan study is a righteous sect. It's one thing to look up to you, but if they really want to invite you to be a guest elder, they won't be able to lower themselves to do so. It would seem that the sect has no successor. Anyway, there's still my brother, Senior Qing Song and the rest. Yes. After sharing with his little fairy, Lu Qing barely calmed down his excitement. He chatted with Zhao Chang, Kai Zongming and the rest for a while. When he went to the washroom he called his master. Hey, you're finally willing to call me? Geezer sure said sarcastically. Lu Qing laughed dryly and went straight to the point. Master, the Dragon King just called me and asked me to go to the Longhu Club next year. What do you think if I don't go back to the Wuxia Club? He hid the fact that he had already agreed to it. Go. Of course you have to go. Your fire sect martial arts only have force and no moves. Don't you feel that it's very restrictive? When you go to the Longhu Club, make up for it. If there's a chance, learn all the unique skills of physical invulnerability and the forbidden sect. Geezer sure said with saliva flying everywhere. Unique skills of physical invulnerability. Forbidden sect martial arts. Lu Qing's mouth twitched. Master, do you have to be so straightforward? It sounds like you want to knock me out and send me there, my biological master. Geezer sure coughed and said, I'm doing this for your own good, you brat. There aren't many chances for you to learn the forbidden sect's martial arts. It's settled then. With Dragon King's pride, he's already called you personally. What else do you want? Okay. Lu Qing was secretly relieved. Well, there might also be a shameless old guy who's good at pestering you in the next few days. He'll invite you under my name. You can just reject him directly. Don't talk nonsense with him. Geezer sure thought of another matter. 2 days ago he accidentally let slip that his disciple would most likely not return to the Wuxia Club. Who's that? Lu Qing was stunned. Geezer sure sighed. I was young and immature. I made friends with that old guy by mistake. It's still a headache to this day. Anyway, don't give him a chance to take advantage of you. After that, he hung up the phone and walked around his daughter's house looking for good wine. Lu Qing was left in a daze at the bathroom door. Who could it be? Which force? These two doubts didn't last long. On the night of October 1st, the official start of the holiday, Lu Qing received a call from the old guy. The other party smiled very warmly. Lu. Yes, who is this? Lu Qing said politely. I'm a good friend of your master's for many years. My surname is Wu. I'm currently working in the Haiyuan Club. Jiang Wo has mentioned me to you, right? The voice on the other side didn't sound too old. There was a hint of leisure in the mellow voice. A little. Senior Wu Molian, right? Lu Qing roughly knew who it was when he heard the words Haiyuan Club and surname Wu. Which first-pin mighty ones participating in professional competitions weren't famous? Yes, it's me, the empty nest old man, Wu Molian laughed. Lu, are you interested in joining our Haiyuan Club? Although we haven't entered the top circle yet, we'll be there soon. I can still fight for another 5 years. The witch has already grown up. The cheetah has almost agreed to join us. Li Xiaoyuan will come next year or the year after. If you're willing to join us, you'll definitely be a core member that will focus on nurturing. You can learn whatever you want from the club's martial arts. We'll give you a basic salary based on physical and vulnerability standards. If you want a house and a car, just say the word. Remembering his master's teachings, Lu Qing interrupted him. Senior Wu, I've already promised the Longhu Club. If I don't return to the Wuyue Club, I'll join them. The Longhu Club? That's fast. Wu Molian muttered. Lu, you have to consider this carefully. You're just one of the reserves in the Longhu Club. But at Haiyuan you'll be the only one. To put it bluntly, they're big and have strict rules. Even if you're a heavenly son of the era, you'll still have to lower your head. What are their conditions? I don't know yet. Lu Qing answered honestly. He had completely forgotten about this when he made the promise. As for the fact that he hadn't signed the contract, he had to keep his word in the martial arts world. You don't know? Lu, this means that they don't value you. What you need the most at your current stage is to be valued. Wu Molian perked up. Lu Qing replied immediately. The Dragon King called me. That's enough, right? The Dragon King? Wu Molian fell silent. Yes. Lu Qing confirmed. Phew, Senior Wu won't pester me anymore, right? The Dragon King's moves are indeed fast, accurate, and ruthless. Wu Molian sighed and smiled again. Lu, you really have to consider this carefully. The Dragon King is too arrogant and not easy to get along with. He rambled on for a full half an hour before Lu Qing finally got rid of him. He felt both physically and mentally exhausted. What a persevering old man. Luckily, my willpower is strong and I'm not swayed. On the 2nd of October, Lu Qing returned to Xioshan and participated in the moving. He carried a cabinet in one hand and walked into the freight elevator under the dumbfounded gazes of the onlookers. Seriously, it's not like we don't have money. Why can't we just hire a moving company? Why must we find a car and move by ourselves? Lu Qing cursed Qi Feng in his heart as he moved the cabinet into his new home. At this moment his phone rang. The screen lit up and the words hipster appeared. Ha hipster, what's up? Lu Qing answered the call happily. And Chaoyang laughed. I heard that you won't be returning to Wuyue Club next year? Probably. Lu Qing didn't try to hide it. I'm here on behalf of my master. Xinghai Club is waiting for you. And Chaoyang went straight to the point. Queen of Thought's invitation? Lu Qing felt smug for a few seconds and replied sincerely, I've already promised the Dragon King. Dragon King? And Chaoyang was shocked. After a while he laughed. Then I won't be long-winded about the conditions. How are you doing at Xinghai Club recently? Lu Qing changed the topic and asked casually. It's all right. Every few days someone will use you, Renli, and priest to educate me like other people's children. And Chaoyang replied casually. After chatting for a while he hung up the phone. The phone screen showed the time and the person of the call. 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Husky. Chapter 513. Lu Qing put down his phone and thought of the calls he had received in the past few days. He felt a little emotional and then realized something was missing. Yes, neither the Wuyue Club nor the Ice God sect had contacted him. Were they blocked by Master, or had they acquiesced to this situation and development? Lu Qing shook his head and laughed. He didn't think about it anymore and continued his moving business. He followed the rented van back and forth several times and became the main labor force today. He lifted the marble table with one hand that could only be lifted by 4 people. Lu Jisheng and Qi Feng sighed that practicing martial arts was so good. Lu Yanwei, Lu Yuanchang, and the others who came to help didn't dare to help. They could only carry some small items and dutifully cheer him on and yell, 666, a few times. When it was close to noon, Lu Qing entered his original home again to see if he had missed anything. The living room was mostly empty and full of junk. The cabinet, the TV, the single sofa, and the coffee table that had been used for many years were missing. At first glance, Lu Qing suddenly felt a sense of loss. He had a subtle feeling of leaving his hometown. In his opinion, the new home was full of unfamiliarity. Walking in it, there was no sense of familiarity. However, this was the place where he had lived for more than 10 years. It was a place that was engraved into his bones. It was the home in his heart. He sighed and walked around the living room, half checking and half reminiscing. He stopped at the door of the master bedroom and looked around. The wardrobe and desk were gone. Only the old clothes that his mother had finally abandoned were left on the floor. Looking at the empty space, he pictured the big mottled bed painted with red paint. Lu Qing's expression was a little complicated. That was the bed that his mother had given to him when he married her. It had accompanied her throughout her marriage, witnessed his birth and growth, and witnessed his learning and hard work. When they got married, they didn't have enough resources. His mother was born in a rural family and naturally didn't have a dowry. For this reason, his omnipotent grandfather found wood and built the bed and furniture by himself, which were still in use today. Gazing deeply at her, Lu Qing came to the door of his room. Because the new house had bought a double bed and a sofa bed, his old bed was still quietly in the same place, just like it had been for so many years. However, the desk beside it, the bookshelf opposite it, and the wardrobe were all gone. Thinking of his tumultuous childhood, of his myopic youth who would sneakily read novels with the lamp under his quilt at night, of his youthful holidays where he slept until noon, and of Yanzhika lying there under the sun, of his pious and surging years of growth, Lu Qing had a moment of unwillingness to part with this place and his old friend. It was like saying goodbye to a childhood friend whom he had known for many years. I really want to bring it to my new home. Lu Qing took out his phone, took a picture of his memory and sent it to Yanzhika before she fell asleep. It seems like I don't have a home anymore. There was no past. Rub your head. When my family moved to this place, I also felt uncomfortable for a long time. Well, after 2 weeks I got used to it and accepted it. Yanzhika sent an emoji with tears of laughter. With Dad and Mom, I soon felt like home. Lu Qing casually picked up the few old books that he didn't want before, looked around the room one last time, and quietly closed the door, bidding farewell to the home that existed in his memories for more than 10 years. Taking the elevator to the new house, he took a shower to wash away the sweat and dirt, and changed out of the stained clothes. He reached out to wipe his hair and white steam rose. Passing by the kitchen, Lu Qing heard his father chatting with his grandparents in the living room, and saw his mother busily preparing the dishes. According to the customs of Xioshan, on the first day of moving, one had to treat one's family and friends to a meal. Mom, why go through so much trouble? Can't you just book 2 tables outside? Lu Qing leaned against the kitchen door and said disapprovingly. Qi Fang looked up and glared at him, not caring that he was the heavenly son of the age. What's the point of not having a warm stove at home? Mom, when it comes to customs, it's fine if it's convenient, but it doesn't matter if it's inconvenient. Everything should be done by yourself. Otherwise, it will become a feudal superstition. Lu Qing persuaded again. You're the one who's superstitious. Qi Fang's voice rose then softened. Today there are only relatives on both sides, not many people. Okay Mom, I'll help you. Lu Qing walked into the kitchen, took an apron and put it on. You'll help? Go. Go out and chat with your grandparents. Don't make trouble here. Your grandma and the rest will come to help later. Qi Fang didn't look happy at all. She waved her hand disdainfully as if she was shooing flies. My real mother. Lu Qing grabbed the knife and squeezed in front of the chopping board. Mom, I've cooked a few meals in America. Also, people who practice martial arts have good knife skills. Really? Qi Fang put down the kitchen knife and watched in surprise as her son chopped melons, vegetables, bones and meat. Not bad. She praised in her heart, but that wasn't the main point. She didn't hide her curiosity and asked, You guys really cooked in America? You were in charge? Lu Qing thought for a while and said, Usually I just cut the vegetables and Ku was in charge of cooking. Qi Fang smiled and nodded with satisfaction. You guys live a decent life. However, you have to take the initiative to cook some dishes. Don't let Ku do it. It's too smoky, she rambled on for a long time. Okay, I'll watch carefully later. When Lu Qing answered, his hands didn't stop at all. The sound of the chopping continued. After a while he finished preparing most of the dishes. Seeing that the countertop was full, he stopped and watched his mom cook. "I'm studying hard." He took a picture and sent it to Ko. "I miss your food." Yenjika, who had washed up and was lying in bed, suddenly felt hungry. After watching for more than 10 minutes, Lu Qing volunteered to cook the familiar stir-fried beef. He handed the phone to Qi Fong and said, "Mom, help me take a video later. Just press here and don't let go." "Yes, here. It will stop by itself when you let go." "Seriously, what's there to take?" Qi Fong muttered and aimed the phone at her son. She couldn't understand young people nowadays. Taking videos while cooking. "Mom, you can press the button now." Lu Qing poured the beef into the oil and started to stir-fry. When it was time for the side dishes, he deliberately showed off. He held the pot with one hand and threw the food like a chef. Not only that, but he also controlled his strength precisely. Sometimes he threw the word one, sometimes he threw the word chuan, and sometimes it was raining flowers. After putting the fragrant dishes on the plate, Lu Qing took back the phone from his stunned mom and sent the video to Yenjika. Not long after, the girl said with a blank expression, "I've never seen such a boring person like you. What the hell is this fancy stir-frying?" Qi Fong had already come to her senses. She pushed her son out of the kitchen angrily. Go and play by yourself. She doesn't know how to appreciate." Lu Qing spread his hands and shook his head in amusement. He walked to the living room. At this moment he suddenly felt a sense of belonging to this place. When Lu Qing's second uncle, second aunt and grandma arrived and went into the kitchen to help, the warm stove wine was finally ready before 1 o'clock. As there were many people, they were divided into 2 tables. One was the dining room for those who liked to drink, and the other was the coffee table, sofa and low chairs for those who were focused on eating. As the head of the household, Lu Jisheng raised his wine glass and said a few words. After that, everyone congratulated him on moving into the house. After eating and drinking, some people played mahjong, some played pig trotting, some played fight the landlord, some played chess and some played online games. They had a pleasant afternoon. After dinner, Lu Cheng's grandpa and grandpa were sent home by his uncle who didn't drink. His grandparents who came from Ningxue stayed in the guest room. Qi Yunfei and Qin Xiaoxiao stayed in the guest room. His aunt Qi Yin and uncle Chen Wenghua slept in the separate study. There was a sofa that could be folded into a bed. Lu Qing looked at the unfamiliar sofa in the living room and was speechless for a long time. First day in a new house and I'm going to be a director, again? Covering face expression and sighing expression, he said to his wife. Yenjika, who was in class, replied with 3 words, "Laugh out loud." On October 3rd, Lu Qing practiced as usual. In his spare time he went to Qin Rui's martial arts club. At night, he took the high-speed train back to Songqing because the martial arts club would resume the special training the next morning. At 8 o'clock the next day in the martial arts arena of Songqing University, the special training team, which had swelled to more than 20 people, finally saw Coach Lu after a long time. Some people even took photos and posted them on Weibo and WeChat moments. They were so moved that their eyes were brimming with tears. After finishing the preliminary training, Lu Qing put his hands behind his back and asked everyone to come out and practice one by one. After that he said, "Senior Li Mao, Talker, He and Delete, you can participate in the professional ranking event at the end of October. Jin Lu, Jin Yan, you can go too. You may not pass, but it's good to have some experience." As for the newcomer Deng Yang, he had gotten the professional 9th pin certificate before entering university. As for the 8th pin Dan stage, he couldn't be rushed. Chapter 5:14. Hearing Lu Cheng's words, Li Mao and Kai Zongming were delighted, as if they had been waiting for a long time. They were strong enough to get the certificate in April, but they were delayed by the national competition and had to wait until now. As the defending champion, Songqing University was undoubtedly the seed of the division and would enter the group directly. They would only appear on the stage of the new university martial arts competition at the end of November. On the other hand, He and Wang Dali were both excited and apprehensive. At times, they felt that they had a high chance of getting the professional 9th pin certificate if they gave it a try. At other times they felt that they were still lacking and that it would be safer to wait for another half a year. There was no need for them to be tortured. As for Jin Lu and Mu Jinyin, they had an indifferent attitude. To them, the chances of them breaking through the encirclement were slim. "Senior Lu, Coach Lu, we haven't fought in a long time. I would like to apply for actual combat in the team to prepare for the ranking event." Wang Dali, who looked like someone released from a labor camp, raised his hand and suggested. "Sure. Lu Qing nodded with a smile without hesitation. With his current strength he was more than enough to be their referee. I'll sign up first. I want to challenge He. Wang Dali stepped out first. His eyes were bright and his tone was resolute, as if he had been planning this for a long time. Why? Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. Why does it feel like there's a grudge between them? Wang Dali replied with grief and indignation. The last few times we played werewolf, she would always be the first to kill me. I can't play this stupid game anymore. As soon as he finished, He, whose hair had just reached her ears, laughed with the other female team members. Who asked someone to look so fierce? What a deep hatred. Lu Qing sighed with emotion. Coach Lu, Senior Lu will play this afternoon and then have a meal together. Do you want to join us? He asked expectantly. The freshmen who had just joined the special training team, regardless of gender, immediately focused their eyes on Lu Qing. The National Day holiday, special training in the morning, nothing in the afternoon. Feeling their expectant and inviting gazes, Lu Qing thought for a while and said, I won't be joining the game. I have something to do in the afternoon. In the morning he had to take on a part-time job as a coach and especially spare some time to video chat with Ku, who was in her free state at night. He had almost no time to practice, so he had to make up for it in the afternoon. This would be his domestic work and rest routine for the next 1 or 2 years, and it would not be easily changed unless there was an emergency or too big of an accident. When everyone's expressions turned to disappointment and frustration, he added with a smile, That's right. No problem. Once you've made the reservation, give me the time and place. Okay. Deng Yang and the others answered in unison and became excited again. In the following actual combat training and daily cultivation, they were full of motivation and enthusiasm. When it was almost 11 o'clock, Lu Qing made sure that Yen Zhika had finished her homework and reports. He corrected each of them and asked them to practice in groups. Then he entered the locker room and shared all the changes in the martial arts club with Yen Zhika in a quiet environment. After the chat came to an end, he walked out and planned to go to the cafeteria to fill his stomach while the girl was washing her face. He would go back to the dorm and continue the video call. At this moment, a beautiful freshman wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges ran over from the female locker room. Her eyes were full of excitement and her cheeks were red as she said, Coach Lu, can I have your autograph? No, 2 autographs. Okay. Lu Qing usually wouldn't refuse such a request. He smiled and said, Call me senior brother Lu. Coach Lu has already gone offline. Look, it's already past 12. The girl was amused and relaxed a lot. She unfolded the white t-shirt in her left hand and handed the pen to him. She said crisply, Senior brother Lu, please sign here first. Lu Qing didn't say anything. He picked up the pen and wrote his name on the front of the shirt. Damn it, I haven't signed for a long time. I'm rusty now. Although I'm not rusty, it doesn't look good either. After putting away the t-shirt, the girl took out a talismanic necklace from her pocket. Its pendant was golden, like some mythical beast in legends. Senior brother Lu, can I engrave my name on the pendant? The first-year girl nervously took out the pen used for micro-engraving. What the hell? At this moment, Lu Qing was dumbfounded. This was the first time he had seen such a request for an autograph. The student girl's lips trembled as she stammered, My cousin asked me to help her. She's very superstitious and her luck isn't very good. She's always unlucky. Senior brother Lu, don't you have the ability to reflect curses and bad luck? She wanted to ask for a protective amulet with your signature, so that she could avoid disasters and protect herself. There's such a thing? Lu Qing was dumbfounded and momentarily speechless. Student, you can't be superstitious. Why does this sentence sound so familiar? Senior brother Lu, if you're not willing, then forget it. The girl stole a glance at her idol and said in a stutter. Lu Qing came back to his senses and shook his head with a smile. It's okay. Just this once. He took the micro-engraving pen, lowered his elbow and tightened his wrist. Channeling his strength, he engraved Lu Qing on the golden pendant and passed it to the first-year student. Thank you, senior brother Lu, the girl thanked him happily and excitedly. On the way back, she turned around and bowed her head slightly. At this time, more than half of the special training members had gathered and were planning to leave for the reserved cafe to play Werewolf Kill. Lunch would also be served there. Senior brother Lu, bye-bye. They waved goodbye cheerfully, leaving Lu Qing alone. Sigh, it seems that in other people's eyes, I'm gradually not very sociable and don't like to participate in activities. Maybe they'll think that I'm getting more and more arrogant. Lu Qing shook his head and smiled, half self-deprecating and half lamenting. I really don't have time. What are you laughing at? Little Ming's voice came from the back of the locker room. Lu Qing turned his head and looked at Kai Zongming, who had already changed his clothes. I'm laughing at why you're not participating? Isn't that nonsense? Fang Yuan is leaving on the 7th. Kai Zongming replied with a look of disdain. I've told you 3 times and you can't even remember. Are you entering old age ahead of time? Really 3 times? Lu Qing racked his brain but couldn't find the corresponding memory. For a moment he was at a loss. No. Little Ming answered sincerely. Come here, I promise I won't beat you to death. Lu Qing said, grinding his teeth. Kai Zongming laughed and asked, Qing, what do you think is the probability of me getting a certificate in this ranking event? If you're lucky enough, you're basically guaranteed to get it. Lu Qing answered honestly. That's good. Don't you know how much effort it took me to resist showing off my strength when I was with my former classmates, friends, and relatives during the summer vacation? I can't just jump out and flex my muscles, kick the pillar, or say that I'm an expert now, right? How embarrassing. Kai Zongming said with imagination running wild. When I get the certificate, I'll slap it in front of them and they won't have to say anything anymore. What's the difference between the 2 methods? Lu Qing asked, amused. Don't you think the latter method is more subtle? Kai Zongming made a retracting gesture. I don't think so. They're both equally stupid. Lu Qing answered without hesitation. After joking and teasing each other, they left the martial arts arena. One went to the cafeteria while the other went to the school cafeteria to meet up with Fang Yuan. The next few days went by as usual. Lu Qing booked an early flight to America so that he could make it back in time to supervise the ranking event. Smith hummed a soundless melody and walked into the office with light steps. During this time he had been very relaxed. The tasks assigned to him were quite simple, so he didn't have to worry about them. What a wonderful life. Thank God. He had just made a cup of coffee and sat down when he suddenly received a call from the director, asking him to come over. What's the task this time? Smith knocked on his boss's door with curiosity and expectation. Monitor him. You should be very familiar with it. I don't need to say more, right? The director turned the computer screen around and a familiar face came into Smith's sight. Yellow skin, black hair, chiseled features, a smile on his face, and the word danger in red beside it. It was Lu Qing. Smith's eyes widened and his mouth opened little by little. He blurted out, Why is he here again? Is there an end to this? In the following days, Lu Qing didn't make things difficult for Smith, who was on tenterhooks. He lived a peaceful life, kept a low profile, and didn't do anything out of line. In order to avoid the limelight, he planned to find a chance to challenge the Grandmaster of Martial Arts in the next semester. In the process, Kai Zongming and Li Mao successfully obtained the professional 9th pin certificate. Ez, after a tough battle, barely managed to obtain the certificate. Wang Dali, who was slightly weaker and unlucky, failed in the group stage. Jin Lu and Mu Jinyan were too far apart. It was purely based on experience. However, the addition of 4 professional 9th pin fighters, Deng Yang brought his own certificate, made the martial arts club in the limelight at Songqing University again. More students were willing to join the martial arts class. As a last resort, the martial arts class added 1, 3, and 5 for students who didn't make it to the next round. At the end of November, the new National University Martial Arts Competitions Division Group stage started. Songqing University's first opponent was the weaker Celestial Academy. Lu Qing, who came back from America for the 3rd time, didn't put himself in the lineup. He put the newcomer Deng Yang as a substitute. Even so, Li Mao, who was in charge of the field, didn't do much. Kai Zongming, who dominated the conversation time, and the new calf He almost completed 3 kills. On the first weekend of December, Songqing University welcomed its old rival, Shannon University Martial Arts Club. In the away team's locker room, Lin Xiaoji, who had a high ponytail, sighed and said, Inhuman! How can we fight? Luckily I said last year that we would wait for the year after next year. It should be next year. At that time, Peng Liyun will graduate and Lu Qing will enter the professional competition in advance. This is our chance. Before the competition started, she was already thinking about the next time. Mu Yu, old man Mu, glanced at her from the blessed Buddha beads, exquisite crosses and other items. He fixed his eyes on the new collarbone necklace on Lin Xiaoji's neck. Your amulet is rare. He asked a question that had been bothering him for a while. Lin Xiaoji smiled proudly. Yes, it's rare. There should be only one in the world. It's Lu Qing's amulet that blocks bad luck. What's that? Muyu and Jean Dolly were confused. Lu Cheng's amulet? I asked someone to make a pendant of the sky-shaking roar. I asked my cousin who just entered Songqing University to get Lu Cheng to sign his name and bless it. It will definitely block bad luck. What theory is that? Muyu blurted out. Metaphysics theory. Lin Xiaoji answered confidently. I'm now a believer of Lu Cheng. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.